If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61. The moment I realized my brother was in danger, my house Hoku surged out of me like a pulsing tide. Even Aanya froze in her steps and squinted her eyes, quickly reassessing the threat I posed. Without hesitation, she drew her blade and pointed it at me. Afraid to approach without your blade now? I smirked and taunted the new Admiral, whose eyes had turned blood red. As I squared off against the new Admiral, her lips curled in mockery, as though she regarded me as nothing more than a fool. Yet, as my house Hoku surged, the sea and its surroundings transformed. The once serene atmosphere of Marineford twisted into chaos as dark clouds gathered, unleashing a torrential downpour accompanied by ferocious winds. The sky crackled with lightning, casting an eerie glow over the battlefield. Despite the tempest, my keen observation haki allowed me to maintain focus, while Aanya, already at a disadvantage fighting on the ship, struggled against the poor visibility and the tumultuous conditions. Though she possessed a decent observation haki, it paled in comparison to mine. Crimson Spear, Aanya whispered under her breath. I immediately noticed a vast movement beneath the ship. Hundreds of spears made of blood suddenly pierced from underneath, attempting to skewer me. Unlike ordinary spears, these seemed to have a mind of their own, chasing after me relentlessly. I realized that running away was futile in this situation without creating an opening, so I started deflecting the blood spears. The saving grace was that, despite covering a large area around the ship, I could feel that her powers were restrained due to the seawater. It was the right call not to land on the island. Staying on the ship restrained the woman's power to a certain level. As Admiral Aganya's crimson spears relentlessly pursued me, I deflected them with all the skill and focus I could muster. Each clash of her blood-infused weapons against my sword echoed across the deck of the battleship. Meteor slash! I leaped and spun, dodging and parrying as the blood spears chased after me with relentless determination, countering with a relentless barrage of flying slashes of my own. Aganya's mastery over her devil fruit power was undeniable, and I could feel the pressure mounting with each passing moment. But I refused to yield. Drawing upon my own observation haki, I focused on anticipating her movements, using my future sight to predict her attacks milliseconds before they came. This might look like a small interval, but for me, it was a matter of life and death. I was dancing on the tip of the blade. Crimson Tiger. With a swift motion, Aanya lunged forward, her blade flashing with deadly intent infused with the power of blood and haki. I countered, meeting her strike with a burst of armament haki, the clash sending shockwaves rippling through the air. The force of our collision threatened to knock me off balance, but I held firm, gritting my teeth against the strain. If not for my future sight, I might have already succumbed to the unpredictable nature of her bloody attacks. Her strikes were like flowing water, hard to discern the true intent. Your skills are a bit decent, little boy, Aanya called out, her voice ringing with disdain and scorn over the din of battle. But if this is all you have, you should give up. I fight for the true rulers of the world government, and no one can defy it. Aganya's response was a fierce glare, her eyes burning with determination. Without a word, she launched into another relentless barrage of attacks, her movements fluid and precise. Each strike was imbued with her armament haki, threatening to break through my defenses with sheer force alone. Despite attacking me with her sword, she did not give up on her blood fruit powers. I felt as if I was being besieged by two attackers. The woman in front of me had found a rare balance between the two forms of power, making her absolutely dangerous. I responded in kind, meeting her blows with all the strength I could muster. The clash of our swords reverberated across the deck, the sound of steel against steel echoing like thunder. With each passing moment, the intensity of our battle grew, the air crackling with the energy of our conflicting wills. The clash between Aanya and me was palpable, her superiority in combat was evident with each move she made. However, nature itself seemed to conspire on my behalf. With every passing moment, the weather deteriorated, and the environment became increasingly hostile. Visibility plummeted to near zero levels, reducing our surroundings to a murky haze. This environmental advantage allowed me to hold my ground, albeit temporarily. It felt like a desperate race against time, knowing that my window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Despite the worsening conditions, Aanya remained nonchalant, exerting minimal effort in the fight. She knew she held the upper hand, and her relaxed demeanor only added to my sense of urgency. All I needed was a split second of distraction to make my escape. I harbored no illusions about my chances against Aanya. She was a force to be reckoned with, a league below even Garp himself. Her blood logia ability only compounded the challenge, further stacking the odds against me. But even as Aanya pressed her advantage, I refused to back down. Drawing upon the depths of my conqueror's haki, I unleashed a wave of raw intimidation, the sheer force of my willpower radiating outward in a palpable wave. For a moment, Aanya faltered, her movements slowing ever so slightly. Dark Descent. Seizing the opportunity, I launched a fierce counterattack, a move that I had learned from mirroring the famed Dark King himself. The attack was launched, channeling all my skills and haki into the strike. With the powerful blow, I pushed Aanya back, driving her towards the edge of the ship. The deck beneath our feet shook with the force of our clash, the very wood groaning in protest. If it were not for Aanya keeping her blood from wantonly attacking, the only foothold, the ship would have already sunk. It was clear she was using her blood powers to keep the ship afloat. The fight against Aanya was an uphill battle from the start. With each clash, her mastery over haki and her blood logia powers left fresh wounds on my body. My own skills in swordsmanship and haki were pushed to their limits as I desperately tried to fend off her relentless attacks. Every move I made was fueled by the primal instinct to survive, to escape this dire situation. But with each passing second, my chances grew slimmer. Aganya's relentless assault left me reeling, struggling to keep pace with her ferocity. I tried to use every tool at my disposal, even attempting to stir the Sea Kings from their nests below Marineford with my voice. Yet, my control was still lacking, and my efforts proved futile. Despite the odds stacked against me, I refused to yield. The thought of capture loomed over me like a dark cloud, threatening to snuff out any hope of escape. I couldn't afford to be captured, the consequences would be catastrophic. So I fought on, fueled by sheer determination and the desperate need to survive. The clash between Admiral Aanya and me intensified, our swords flashing in a blur of movement as we danced across the deck of the battleship. With each clash, I could feel the strain on my body mounting, but I pushed through it, drawing upon my well of haki to bolster my defenses and launch counterattacks of my own. Our battle was like a tempest raging upon the seas, fierce and unyielding, with neither of us willing to give ground. Despite my efforts, Aanya remained undeterred, her resolve unshaken even in the face of adversity. With a fierce glare, she launched into another series of attacks, her movements fluid and precise, her blade flashing with deadly intent. But I refused to waver, drawing upon every ounce of strength and determination within me to continue the fight. As Aanya lunged forward once again, her blade gleaming with deadly intent, I met her strike head-on, the force of our collision sending shockwaves rippling through the air. But even as I countered her attack, I could sense her determination and resolve, her unwavering commitment to her cause, shining through in every movement. Though the battle was in favor of Aanya, she felt insulted by my resilience. No child had ever challenged her and survived for more than a dozen minutes, let alone matched her skill. Her anger surged, and her aura blazed with intensity. With a swift motion, she sheathed her blade and unleashed her full power. It was a move born of instinct, and I reacted just in time to avoid the brunt of her attack. If I had reacted a moment later, I would have been a headless corpse, but the attack did leave a gash on my neck, making it ooze blood. Aanya smirked as she looked at the bloody cut. "Blood moon," she whispered, and my entire blood started coursing as if being summoned. I quickly understood that she was trying to control my own blood. I infused my entire body with armament haki to counteract the effect of the blood logia fruit. Busos Hoku Koka. But even in that split second, she had pulled out a baby fist-sized globule of blood from me. The blood floated towards her, and Aanya, as if savoring the best cuisine, sipped the blood in its entirety. Her lips were now dripping with blood. "Young blood sure is delicious," she chuckled, wiping her lips with her sleeve. Suddenly, overhead, a shadow formed due to a blood sphere, which was condensed, and it started raining blood. However, every blood drop was like a needle trying to pierce through me. "Blood rain," she whispered as she primed herself to jump into the melee again. As the blood rain descended, painting the battlefield in shades of crimson, I unleashed my conqueror's haki in full force. Black and golden lightning crackled around me, each bolt of energy sizzling as it made contact with the blood droplets, vanishing them from existence. The deck of the battleship trembled beneath my feet as I prepared for Aganya's next assault. But the Admiral was not one to give me a moment's respite. With a fierce cry, she lunged forward, her blade flashing with deadly intent. Crimson Tiger. The power behind her attack was unlike anything I had faced before, and my future sight warned me that dodging was not an option. With a roar of defiance, I met her strike head-on with a downward slash. Meteor slash. The clash of our blades echoed across the deck, the force of our collision sending shockwaves rippling through the air. But even as I tried my best to counter her attack, I felt a sharp pain lance through my gut. Aanya had managed to drive her katana right through me, exploiting the weakness caused by the blood I had lost since the start of the clash. With a sickening squelch, she twisted the blade, causing waves of agony to wash over me. The entire world around me spun in a dizzying whirl, my vision tinged with crimson as blood rained down upon us, mixing with the relentless downpour already soaking the battlefield. Under the oppressive influence of Aganya's blood logia powers, my own blood flowed faster, draining me of strength with each passing moment. Lightheaded and disoriented, I struggled to maintain my focus, the gears in my mind turning frantically as I searched for a way out of this dire situation. But Aanya, the relentless monster standing before me, showed no mercy. With a smug smirk, she methodically cut off any possible route of escape, her blade flashing with deadly precision. Despite the tumultuous climate, she remained vigilant, maintaining a thick layer of blood around the ship to prevent any sudden attempts to flee into the sea. As the world blurred around me, my desperation grew, with every instinct screaming for survival. But with each passing second, my chances of escape seemed to dwindle, with Aganya's relentless assault pushing me to the brink of collapse. In the face of her overwhelming power, I struggled to find a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness threatening to consume me. Chapter 62. Just then as the fight intensified, in a momentary loss of my concentration, Aganya's katana found its mark as the blade slashed through my arm, almost severing it, sending a jolt of pain throughout my body. However, even amidst the excruciating pain, I refused to succumb to pain and fatigue. Arg! With a deafening roar, I bit into my own tongue to stave off unconsciousness from blood loss. As clarity replaced agony, I channeled all my energy with vengeance, swinging Sandai Kaiditsu with every ounce of strength. Dark Descent. Aanya, reveling in the sensation of toying around with her prey, was caught off guard by my sudden outburst and couldn't raise her blade completely in time for defense. Despite the surprise, she was quick to react. She attempted to enter elemental state for evasion, but the distance was too short. Despite her efforts to clad herself in haki and partially transform in a split second, her elemental form couldn't fully shield her from the devastating blow. I had infused the attack with an advanced form of armament haki, both emission and internal destruction. The attack carried all my wrath and desperation. As she was sent hurtling through the air, crashing into the railing with a resounding thud, a surge of triumph washed over me, though I acknowledged it as petty. Within moments, Aanya returned with vengeance, treating my previous attack as a mere inconvenience. Despite the overwhelming odds, I couldn't help but smirk. Finally, since the start of the battle, I had managed to land a clean hit and draw blood, even if it was a meager amount. Meanwhile, Aanya wore a somber expression, caught off guard by a mere child. The trace of crimson on her lips served as a reminder of the damage I inflicted. Prideful in her perfection, she felt a pang of shame at being bested, even if the attack seemed feeble. Recognizing why the elders held me in high regard, despite my youth, I had mastered advanced armament haki techniques like emission and internal destruction. Under normal circumstances, my attack would have torn through the internal organs of someone wielding a logia fruit, even in elemental form. Yet, Aanya wasn't just anybody reliant solely on her logia abilities. In that split second, she managed to coat herself in haki, sparing herself from the full force of my blow. Despite her outward calmness, a glint of anger and frustration simmered in her eyes as she prepared for another assault. As I stood, feeling the warmth of my own blood flowing from my wounds, I realized each drop I shed only empowered Aanya. Her abilities centered around blood manipulation, and with every wound I sustained, I inadvertently fueled her powers. Despite this disadvantage, I found myself entirely at her mercy, knowing only my armament and conqueror's haki kept her devil fruit abilities restrained for the moment, uncertain how much longer I could endure. Aanya stood poised, but this time with much more seriousness, unsheathing her blade once more, brushing off the debris from her coat, her eyes blazing with anger and contempt. "Kid, I originally intended to take you back to the Holy Land in one piece, but it seems that words alone won't get through to you. I'm sure the elders won't mind if you're missing a limb or two, especially considering you're scheduled for slaughter alongside your brother at Mary Goase." With a swift movement, she vanished from her spot and reappeared behind me, her blade slicing through the air in an attempt to sever my sword arm. But my future sight had already anticipated her move, and I plunged my blade backward to where she would appear next. Clang! Our swords met, but Aanya deflected the swing with ease. "Seriously, what other secrets are you hiding? Exceptional mastery of armament haki, observation haki honed to see the future, conqueror's haki. Kid, you need to die, and I will make sure of it. Aanya remarked with surprise mixed with contempt, her attacks growing more ferocious as she combined her blade skills with her blood powers. I realized the reason she could deflect my attacks with such casual ease was not just due to my current condition but also due to the disparity between my mind and body. While my observation haki could outmatch Aganya's, my body's reaction time couldn't keep up. It was a drawback I knew I couldn't overcome through training alone. My body needed to naturally grow and develop alongside my haki abilities. For now, this discrepancy left me vulnerable to Aganya's onslaught, as she ceased holding back and pressed her advantage trying to tear me apart. Meanwhile, the entirety of Marineford had already descended into chaos. Only the higher UPS were aware of the order to capture young Rosinante, while the rest remained oblivious. Originally, Tsuru had advised against revealing the order, fearing that Garp's prodigy might have honed his observation haki to the point of detecting thoughts and emotions. People with weak wills could be read like open books, and Tsuru wasn't willing to take that risk. So as currently Garp alongside his subordinates fighting against the rest of the admirals and their subordinates had created confusion amongst the marine ranks, not many were aware what exactly was happening and stayed in the sidelines praying in silence. Tell me, what have you done with my brother? I demanded, my voice strained with exhaustion. It had been nearly half an hour since my clash with Aanya began, and blood continued to drip from my countless wounds. Despite my best efforts, I found myself on my knees, struggling to hold my ground against an Admiral-level fighter. While I could have held my own against someone like the current Sakazuki or Borsellino, who had yet to reach their full potential, Aanya was a different story. She was a genuine powerhouse, and facing her was pushing me to my limits. Even pushing myself to such an extent was not enough to mount a decent defense against her, as she wasn't even taking the fight seriously. It was like a predator toying with its prey. My current condition was truly pathetic, my right arm hanging limply at my side, the deep gash across it serving as a painful reminder of my predicament. With my right arm incapacitated, I gripped Kaititsu tightly in my left hand, thankful for my ambidexterity. I had honed my skills with both hands, and while I preferred single-sword combat, I hadn't neglected the use of my offhand. My vision began to blur as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me. Even my armament haki faltered under the relentless assault, but my conqueror's haki remained steadfast, keeping Aanya at bay throughout the battle. Though I was at an absolute disadvantage, I had managed to land a few blows of my own. Aganya's once pristine attire was now a bit crumbled, and her graceful demeanor had given way to sweat and disheveled hair. Despite her apparent victory, I was making it difficult for her. I had even left a gash on her back which I could attribute only to catching her off guard due to my superior observation haki. Though she had swiftly healed herself using her blood abilities, the attack was like a slap on her face. Despite my unyielding counters where I tried to exchange a wound for a wound, Aanya still came out on top as she casually used her blood ability to heal herself. Though I had a superior physique, it was frustrating to see her use me as a blood source to replenish her wounds. Oh, don't worry about your brother, Aanya sneered, her voice laced with malice. He will be well taken care of. Lucky for you, the elders have ordered to take both of you alive. So why don't you surrender, kid? Although you have struggled admirably, you are still leagues away from reaching the stage where you can challenge me. Maybe, if given a decade or two with your talent, you might be qualified for me to use my true powers. But, unfortunately for you, kid, your journey ends here today. Despite the dire situation, I refused to yield. My body ached from the multitude of wounds, and the temporary loss of my functions in one of my arm and a leg left me severely handicapped. Yet, I remained defiant in the face of Aganya's overwhelming power. There was a rare glint of admiration in her eyes as she regarded me. Fallen though I may be, I was also a descendant of God, and that fact alone earned her begrudging respect. Aanya hailed from the Figarland family, a lineage from the original 20. Because of her unmatched talent, she has been trained since she was young to serve as one of God's knights. She had always prided herself on being the epitome of talent, believing that no one could match her prowess. Even within the Holy Land, she had been groomed for greatness, destined to become a pillar amongst the celestial dragons. But now, standing before her, was a child who had the potential to match her, maybe given time even surpass her. It was a realization that both intrigued and unnerved her, fueling her determination to bring me down and preserve her status as the supreme genius. Dark Descent! I shouted, launching a flying slash at Aanya in a desperate attempt to catch her off guard. But to my dismay, the once majestic attack had diminished in size, a clear indication of my waning armament haki. My gaze drifted toward the bay, where the chaos of Marineford unfolded before me. Despite the distance, I could make out Garp and his direct subordinates, fighting tirelessly against overwhelming odds. Aganya's voice pierced through my thoughts as I drifted, the blood loss-inducing hallucinations. Dripping with contempt, she casually deflected my incoming attack with a blood slash of her own. "Forget about them," she taunted. "They'll never come to your rescue. Isn't it amusing to watch them squirm? That's the loyalty of dogs to their masters." Her words stung, reminding me of my past affiliations with the original Don Quixote family. But I pushed aside the memories, focusing on the present duel. Meanwhile, Kuzan battled against the combined might of Sakazuki and Borsalino. "Junior sure is putting up a fight, it's so scary," Borsalino remarked, attempting to strike Kuzan from behind. Ever vigilant, Kuzan countered with an ice shield, redirecting Borsalino's light-based attack toward Sakazuki. "Kuzan, you are a marine, you should know that he is a criminal, he has slaughtered innocents, he needs to be punished, don't make me kill you," Sakazuki bellowed, following absolute justice to the letter, a perfect lapdog to the world government. Great eruption. Sakazuki retaliated with a mighty eruption of magma, while Kuzan countered with his own ice-based technique. Ice Age. The clash between the two Logia users created a spectacle of elemental fury. Meanwhile, Bogard struggled against the overwhelming number of vice admirals pouring out like a relentless tide. Though formidable, he restrained himself from harming his fellow marines. Without admiral-level abilities or means to push back massive numbers, the tide of battle turned against him. Witnessing his friend's plight, Garp's resolve hardened. "Kong!" Garp's voice thundered, his house Hoku haki surging like an unstoppable wave, knocking out several vice admirals surrounding Bogard. "Stop this madness! Don't force my hand!" Despite the chaos, Garp remained resolute, attempting to reason with Kong and the other admirals. But time was running out. The strain of the prolonged battle took its toll on his protégé, and he sensed my armament haki faltering. However, my duel with Aanya continued unabated. Despite my injuries and diminishing haki, I stood my ground against overwhelming odds. Every blow I landed was a testament to my determination, even as Aganya's power threatened to completely overwhelm me. Meanwhile, on an uncharted island in the New World, the planned meeting between the Don Quixote family and the Beast Pirates had descended into chaos. Betrayal had torn through their ranks, leaving the Don Quixote family at the mercy of the ferocious Beast Pirates and the forces of the world government. Amidst the carnage, Kaido himself, the feared strongest creature in the world, had descended upon the island. "Ha ha ha, did you think you could stroll through the New World unchallenged, brat?" Kaido's booming voice echoed across the battlefield as he faced off against Doflamingo, Diamante, and Senior. Despite the numerical disadvantage, Kaido exuded confidence in his hybrid form, radiating power. Battered and bruised, Doflamingo glanced at the fallen body of Pika, a loyal member of the Don Quixote family who had sacrificed himself to protect his leader. Anger simmered in Doflamingo's eyes as he braced himself for the onslaught. Chapter 63. Kaido noticed Doflamingo's gaze and kicked Pika's lifeless body, a cruel taunt aimed at the Don Quixote family's leader. "Join me, brat," Kaido offered, his voice dripping with malice. "Serve under me, and I'll spare your life. All three of you are worthy of serving under the might of the Beast Pirates." But Doflamingo remained defiant, refusing to bow to Kaido's demands. "Our deal was clear, Kaido-sama," Marcus, also known as Brutus, interjected from the sidelines, clad in his CP0 uniform. "Doflamingo is to be handed over to Cypher Paul alive. You'll get their secrets, but Doflamingo must be surrendered. That's the agreement." Infuriated by Marcus's words, Kaido swung his club with tremendous force, imbuing it with haki as he unleashed his Thunder Bagua attack. Marcus reacted swiftly, crossing his arms and cloaking himself in haki to defend against the onslaught. The clash reverberated through the air, the sheer force of the collision sending shockwaves rippling across the battlefield. Though Marcus managed to withstand the attack, the momentum of the impact sent him hurtling backward, breaking his tech-high stance. As the chaos unfolded on the island, the fate of the Don Quixote family hung in the balance, caught in a deadly struggle against the overwhelming might of the Beast Pirates and their fearsome captain, Kaido. "You government's dog, you don't get to tell me what I can and can't do, understood, you bastard?" Kaido's voice thundered across the chaotic battlefield as he glared menacingly at the CP agent. His anger simmered beneath the surface, fueled by the agent's interference. If I want him to join my crew, then that's final. Who gave you the authority to challenge me? Kaido's words dripped with contempt as he addressed the CP agent. Despite his fury, Kaido restrained himself from unleashing his full wrath on the agent. He understood the delicate balance of power and alliances in the world. Kaido's recent encounter with Garp and the one-sided torment that followed taught him valuable lessons about the dangers of overestimating his own strength. And in Wano, Oden's connections with figures like Roger and Whitebeard posed a significant threat, one that Kaido was not yet ready to face head-on. He needed time to solidify his position at the pinnacle of power. While Kaido recognized the importance of maintaining ties with the world government, he refused to be subservient to their whims. The revelation of Wano's true nature had shifted the balance of power in his favor, making him realize that he held more leverage than he had previously thought. Despite his disdain for authority, Kaido understood the pragmatic necessity of alliances and cooperation. For now, he would tolerate the presence of the CP agents, but he made it clear that he would not be dictated to by anyone, not even the world government. Ha ha ha, the government's dog, now that has a good ring to it, doesn't it, Kaido? Aren't you a dog yourself? Willing to betray your allies just to lick their shoes? Doflamingo's laughter cut through the tension between Kaido and Marcus, both of whom turned towards the young teen, who was laughing like a madman. Brat, do you want to die? Kaido's expression darkened as Doflamingo taunted him with the epithet dog. Doflamingo's laughter echoed across the chaotic battlefield, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of madness and defiance. Despite facing off against the monstrous Kaido, he seemed almost gleeful, as if reveling in the chaos surrounding him. Kaido's rage simmered beneath his formidable exterior, his massive form crackling with latent power. You dare mock me, little brat? He growled, his voice like thunder rolling across the island. I could crush you with a single blow. But Doflamingo remained unfazed, his grin widening as he stared down at the future Emperor of the Sea. Oh, I'm sure you could, Kaido, he taunted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But where's the fun in that? Besides, I'm not one to go down without a fight. Flame Emperor. As if to punctuate his words, Doflamingo's entire form danced with orange flames, empowering the burst of Conqueror's haki, a tangible aura of power radiating from his very being. He may have been battered and bruised, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. Marcus, the CP agent, watched the exchange with a mix of apprehension and intrigue. He had witnessed firsthand the chaos that both Kaido and the young Donquixote family members could unleash. Although Kaido had an overwhelming advantage over his opponents, the young Doflamingo was also a pretty strong fighter. If he had a decade or two to grow, he might have reached the apex, and currently, the prospect of them clashing sent a creeping smile on his face. But he also knew that this confrontation presented a unique opportunity to extract valuable intelligence, regardless of the outcome. The clash between Kaido and the trio from the Donquixote family erupted into a chaotic frenzy, the air crackling with tension as their powers clashed with the might of the strongest creature of the sea. Spear of Hell. Doflamingo, his eyes burning with a fierce determination, unleashed torrents of flaming spears, weaving them into intricate patterns that danced around Kaido like fiery serpents. But despite his formidable display, Kaido seemed almost indifferent to the flames licking at his skin, his monstrous form shrugging off the attacks with casual ease. Beside Doflamingo, Diamante unleashed torrents of soot, enveloping the battlefield in a choking haze that obscured visibility and added to the confusion. With swift and precise movements, he transformed the very ground beneath Kaido's feet into a shifting landscape of traps and pitfalls, hoping to catch the beast off guard. But Kaido's senses were razor-sharp, and he effortlessly navigated the treacherous terrain, his steps sure and steady amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, Senor utilized his string fruit powers to ensnare Kaido, weaving intricate webs of razor-sharp threads in an attempt to bind the Emperor and restrict his movements. But Kaido's strength was unmatched, and with a mighty roar, he tore through the threads with sheer brute force, sending Senor reeling backward with a look of shock and disbelief. As the battle raged on, it became increasingly clear that the odds were stacked against the trio from the Donquixote family. Despite their best efforts, they were no match for the overwhelming power of Kaido, whose sheer strength and resilience seemed almost otherworldly. With each passing moment, the situation grew more dire, with the trio's attacks barely making a dent in Kaido's formidable defenses. Then, in a sudden and brutal turn of events, Diamante found himself in Kaido's sights. Conqueror of the Three Worlds, Ragnaroku. Kaido in his human beast form. Wielding his club two-handed, he jumped into the air and quickly spun his weapon above his head as he imbued it with House Hoku Haki, making it exude black lightning. He then, while descending, swung his club down with great force. The future emperor's massive club swinging down with terrifying speed and precision. With a sickening crunch, Diamante was crushed beneath the force of the blow, his body crumpling like a rag doll as he was thrown aside, defeated and broken, his fate unknown. Diamante! Doffy screamed as he saw Diamante's skull shatter under the impact, but before he could react, Kaido set his sights on Senor and dashed towards his loyal friend and subordinate. Senor fared a little better, his attempts to evade Kaido's wrath proving futile as the beast unleashed a barrage of devastating blows, each one more powerful than the last. With a final, bone-crushing strike, Senor's unconscious and broken form was sent hurtling through the air, his body limp and battered as he crashed to the ground in a heap, his fate unknown. Now, only Doflamingo remained, his eyes wide with shock and horror as he faced down the indomitable Kaido. With a menacing growl, Kaido raised his club high overhead, the air crackling with anticipation as he prepared to deliver the final, crushing blow. For Doflamingo, there was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. All he could do was brace himself for the inevitable impact, his fate hanging in the balance as the battle reached its brutal conclusion. In his final moments, Doflamingo's thoughts drifted to his brother, recalling the moments they had shared and wondering if he should have heeded his brother's warnings. He yearned to see his brother one last time, but amidst the chaos of battle, such wishes seemed futile. With a grim determination, Doflamingo mustered all his remaining strength, his conqueror's haki blazing forth like a final act of defiance. As the clash between Kaido, the fearsome beast pirate emperor, and the young teenage Doflamingo, wielding the powers of the flame fruit, ignited, the air crackled with anticipation. Kaido's monstrous form, a hybrid between dragon and man, loomed over Doflamingo, his imposing presence suffocating. With a roar that shook the very ground, Kaido lunged forward, his massive claws aiming to crush Doflamingo where he stood. But Doflamingo, his eyes burning with determination, dodged with agile grace, leaving trails of fiery embers in his wake. Summoning his armament haki, Kaido unleashed a devastating barrage of blows, each strike carrying the weight of his monstrous strength. Doflamingo danced between the onslaught, his own haki flaring to deflect the onslaught of attacks. But with each clash, the overwhelming power of Kaido began to take its toll. Doflamingo retaliated with torrents of scorching flames, weaving intricate patterns of fire that licked at Kaido's formidable defenses. But even as the flames engulfed the battlefield, Kaido pressed on, relentless in his assault. Bloodied and battered, Doflamingo refused to yield. With a defiant scream, he unleashed his ultimate technique, Hell's Judgment, a vortex of searing flames that engulfed Kaido in an inferno of agony. But even as the flames raged, Kaido emerged from the inferno, his body adorned with burns, yet his resolve unbroken. With a thunderous roar, Kaido unleashed his own signature move, Thunder Bagua, a devastating shockwave of haki-infused power that sent Doflamingo crashing to the ground, his body broken and bloodied. Yet, even in the face of certain defeat, Doflamingo rose once more, fueled by sheer anger and determination. With the last remnants of his strength, he unleashed a final, desperate onslaught of flames, a blaze of defiance against the unstoppable force of Kaido. In the end, as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, Doflamingo stood on trembling legs, his body broken and battered, but his spirit unbroken. Though defeated, his fiery determination had left an indelible mark on the battlefield, a testament to his unyielding will in the face of overwhelming odds. Majestic Flame Destroyer! Doflamingo roared, unleashing a torrent of searing flames towards Kaido, hoping against hope that this last-ditch effort would somehow turn the tide. But Kaido, with his overwhelming strength and resilience, tore through the flames with sheer brute force, the inferno dissipating in the face of his unstoppable might. In an instant, Kaido closed the distance between them, his massive club descending with terrifying speed. Great virtue and authority thunderclap 8 trigrams. The sickening sound of impact echoed across the battlefield as Kaido's club connected with Doflamingo's body, crushing bone and rending flesh with brutal efficiency. Doflamingo's vision blurred, pain exploding throughout his body as he felt himself being overwhelmed by the sheer force of the blow. Darkness encroached upon his senses, but even in his final moments, he refused to yield. As Kaido raised his club high, preparing to deliver the final, fatal blow, Doflamingo's mind raced. Memories flashed before his eyes, moments of triumph and defeat, victories and losses. He thought of his family, his allies and his enemies, all those who had shaped his journey and brought him to this fateful moment. Goodbye, little brother. But amidst the pain and despair, a spark of defiance ignited within Doflamingo's heart. With his last ounce of strength, he summoned forth his conqueror's haki once more, channeling it into a final act of resistance against the overwhelming might of Kaido. It was a futile gesture, a mere flicker of defiance against the unstoppable force bearing down upon him, but in that fleeting moment, Doflamingo refused to go down without a fight. And then, with a final, bone-crushing blow, darkness claimed him, his consciousness slipping away as the merciless embrace of oblivion welcomed him home. In the end, Doflamingo's fate was sealed, his legacy forever entwined with the tumultuous currents of history, a tragic figure whose story would be remembered by those who came after. Enough! Marcus interjected, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Kaido-sama, remember why we're here. We have a mission to complete, and personal vendettas will only hinder our progress. Kaido's gaze shifted from the fallen Doflamingo to Marcus, his expression unreadable. Fine, he grunted, reluctantly relenting for the time being. But mark my words, our old collaboration ends today. I do not owe you guys any more favors, your insolence will not be forgotten. Marcus's grin only widened in response because for him, Kaido and the government matter were insignificant in front of his mission, and he needed to take Doffy back to the Holy Land, his eyes glittering with a dangerous light. Looking forward to it, Kaido, he quipped, his tone dripping with sarcasm. And with that, the uneasy truce held, at least for the moment. But amidst the chaos of battle and the downfall of the Donquixote family, the seeds of future conflict had been sown, destined to bloom into full-blown chaos in the days to come. Chapter 64. Back in Marineford, exhaustion weighed heavily on me, every movement a monumental effort against the leaden weight dragging me down. Even the simple act of wielding Kaititsu with my left arm felt like a Herculean task, my muscles screaming in protest with each swing. Blood pooled around me, obscuring my vision and adding to the already suffocating sense of chaos enveloping the battlefield. Yet, driven by sheer willpower and a stubborn refusal to yield, I pressed forward into the heart of the storm. Above, the heavens roared their fury, the rumble of thunder echoing like the battle cry of ancient gods. Lightning streaked across the sky in jagged forks of blinding white, illuminating the tumultuous landscape below with a stark, otherworldly brilliance. The downpour intensified, transforming the once serene battlefield into a raging torrent of wind and rain, nature itself rising in defiance against the forces that sought to control it. In the midst of this tempest, even Aanya the formidable Admiral standing before me felt the pressure of nature's might bearing down upon her. Her blood domain, once a formidable barrier against all my escape attempts, wavered in the face of the relentless storm, the chaotic winds and driving rain threatening to tear it asunder. Before I could react, Aganya's blade sliced through the air with deadly precision, finding its mark in my throat. With a desperate resolve, I instinctively countered, my broken right arm grasping onto her weapon in a futile attempt to halt its deadly path. In a desperate bid for survival, my own blade found its mark in her neck, but the formidable barrier of her armament haki remained unyielding, rendering my efforts futile. Blood bubbled from my lips, a grim testament to the mortal wound that now threatened to consume me. Brave, kid, Aganya's voice cut through the cacophony of the storm, her words carrying both respect and disdain in equal measure. Originally, I wanted to take you back alive, but you are too dangerous. I am sure the elders will understand. You are just like them, your mere existence is a sin. Despite the pain and exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm me, I refused to succumb, my spirit burning bright amidst the chaos. For in that moment, I knew that even in the face of death, I would not go quietly into the night. As Aanya withdrew her blade, poised to deliver the final, fatal blow, a surge of vitality rippled through the sea, echoing my unwavering defiance against the hands of fate. The very essence of the ocean stirred in response to my will, a primal force unleashed in my dying moments. The colossal sea kings, ancient behemoths that slumbered in the depths, felt the call of the world itself, their massive forms stirring with newfound purpose. With thunderous roars that reverberated through the tumultuous waters, the sea kings surged forth, their immense bodies crashing through the crimson blockade with unmatched ferocity. The very ocean itself seemed to rise up in rebellion, a formidable army of sea creatures converging upon Aanya with a relentless fury. Yet, even as she stood amidst the chaos, Aanya remained undaunted, her blade flashing with deadly precision as she fended off the onslaught of massive beasts. Amidst the chaos, Aanya detected a sudden change on my side, a subtle shift in the tide of battle that drew her attention away from the encroaching sea kings. With swift reflexes, she collected herself and leaped towards me, her movements fluid and decisive as chaos erupted around us. But even as she closed in for the kill, Aanya sensed a faint glimmer of life within me, a vital sign that persisted despite the mortal wound that had pierced my throat. Disregarding the Sea Kings that surged towards her, she focused solely on her prey, her arm morphing into a crimson serpent aimed directly at my heart. "Crimson serpent," she uttered, her voice a chilling whisper as her hand surged forward with lethal precision. In that moment, as the gaping maw of a massive Sea King loomed overhead, ready to engulf me, Aganya's hand pierced through my chest with horrifying speed, tearing away a chunk of my beating heart. Gasping for breath, I felt the last vestiges of life slipping away, my body consumed by the unforgiving depths of the sea. Aanya stood triumphant, clutching half of my heart in her hand, while I was swallowed by the relentless embrace of the Sea King. Yet, even as darkness closed in around me, my will remained unbroken, a flickering flame of defiance amidst the encroaching shadows. In that fleeting moment of clarity, I found a strange sense of peace, knowing that my legacy would endure, carried forth on the ebb and flow of fate. The sudden arrival of the Sea Kings not only brought an end to the chaotic clash on the sea but also quelled the conflict in the bay. Aanya gazed upon the heart in her hand with a mixture of emotions swirling within her. She couldn't shake the memory of the kid's last defiant gaze, piercing through her with an intensity that mirrored the abyss itself. It wasn't that she didn't want to finish him off completely, she simply couldn't. Fear gripped her when the kid unleashed that final surge of power, as if the entire world itself conspired against her. With a heavy sigh, she composed herself, thinking that there was no way that the kid would survive. Aanya sheathed her blade and turned away, her gaze drifting towards the marine headquarters. The destruction wrought by the Sea Kings upon the battleships and the chaos engulfing the area meant nothing to her now. There were more pressing matters at hand, and she intended to see them through, regardless of the cost. The final act of Ross's demise unfolded before the eyes of everyone in Marineford. Despite Aganya's delayed reaction, she had managed to take down more than half a dozen of the massive Sea Kings. Each of these creatures was of a size that could only be found in the true depths of the ocean. As Aanya landed on the bay with half a heart in her hand, her instincts flared, compelling her to put her guard up as if her life depended on it. She mustered her entire armament haki, but she was unprepared for what followed. Garp, who had witnessed Ross's final moments, transformed into a bloodthirsty beast, consumed by the desire for vengeance. Aganya's seemingly casual act of carrying the heart of his beloved disciple tipped the scales. Galaxy impact. Garp clad himself in armament haki and imbued the attack with House Hoku, launching an assault with the intent to kill. It was the first time since the battle began that he had unleashed such a lethal strike. But Aanya was no pushover. Though she was not on Garp's level, she could hold her own against him. Crimson World. She reacted swiftly, countering Garp's punch with one of her own. However, the outcome was devastating. A sickening crunch echoed as Aganya's arm shattered. If she hadn't been a Logia user, she might have permanently lost her sword arm. Aanya was sent hurtling through the air because of the momentum, crashing onto a battleship and breaking through its hull. Garp's bloodshot eyes reflected his unbridled rage. He was consumed by a desire for vengeance, reminiscent of his reaction when Ace was killed by Akainu in the canon storyline. Back then, he was older and more composed, with Sengoku alone able to restrain him. But now, in his prime and fueled by fury, it took the combined efforts of Kong, Zephyr, Sengoku, and even Tsuru, using her fruit powers, to try and quell Garp's anger. "Garp, have you gone mad? She's the new Admiral." Kong's voice boomed, attempting to reason with Garp. With each passing second, the situation escalated, but somehow, Tsuru's fruit power helped to restrain him to a certain extent. "Garp, if you keep this up, you'll be thrown out of the Marines." Kong's voice thundered. He sought to bring the wild beast under control, knowing that the details could be discussed later. Suddenly, Garp, who had been like a wild beast, paused and locked eyes with Kong. Without a word, he slackened his grip on the unconscious Vice Admiral in his hands and flung him it at the Fleet Admiral's foot. With one last glance in the direction Aanya had fallen, Garp strode purposefully towards Bogard, who lay unconscious on the ground. The crowd surrounding Bogard keeping him restrained parted, intimidated by the sheer bloodlust emanating from the marine hero. No one dared to challenge him. As days flew by, a seismic wave of news swept across the world, shaking the very foundations of power and order. First came the earth-shattering revelation of the fall of the Donquixote family. From the New World to Paradise and even the North Blue, the bases of the once formidable family were razed to the ground, leaving no survivors in their wake. Yet what sent shockwaves even deeper was the fate of the family's leader, shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. In the heart of Mary Gosa, where the eyes of every descendant were fixated, the young Doflamingo lay crucified, a stark symbol of defiance silenced. Beneath him rested a small chest, within which lay half a heart, a chilling reminder to all world nobles of the consequences awaiting those who dared challenge their supremacy. The elders, in their bid to maintain control, sought to suppress this grim event, along with countless others that unfolded in the chaotic aftermath of the Marineford battle. Amidst the turmoil, whispers spread like wildfire amongst the higher-ups of marine communities of an admiral's defection, the creation of a newfound freedom fighter group led by none other than Dragon himself. The news rippled through the marine community, sending shockwaves of uncertainty and unrest. Yet, amidst the chaos, Garp, once a stalwart pillar of the Marines, retreated into the depths of Marineford, his current stance unknown, his silence speaking volumes to those who sought answers. But amidst the turmoil and unrest, one event eclipsed them all: the legendary Roger pirates achieving what had been thought impossible for centuries. Their triumphant arrival at the final island ignited a frenzy of speculation and wonder as rumors of the ultimate treasure, the One Piece, began to spread like wildfire across the globe. Despite the world government's efforts to suppress the news, the truth could not be contained, and Roger was crowned with the illustrious title of Pirate King, forever etching his name into the annals of history. As news of the Roger pirates' historic achievement spread across the seas, the very waters themselves seemed to roil and churn with excitement and anticipation. Ships rocked on tumultuous waves as whispers of the legendary crew's triumph echoed from port to port. Mariners, pirates, and civilians alike found themselves swept up in the fervor, their imaginations ignited by the possibilities unlocked by the discovery of the final island. Amidst the chaos, the world government, recognizing the gravity of the situation, released an updated bounty notice for the Pirate King, Gold Roger. The bounty, displayed in bold letters for all to see, surpassed all previous records, a testament to Roger's unparalleled notoriety and the magnitude of his latest achievement. Even the world government itself was humbled due to the fact that they were not able to suppress the truth and was forced to acknowledge Roger with his new title, Pirate King. Inscribed upon the wanted poster, in letters that seemed to seethe with authority and condemnation, was Roger's exorbitant bounty. Gold Roger, Pirate King, dead or alive, bounty, 5,564,800,000 berries. The staggering figure served as a stark reminder of Roger's enduring legacy and the immense threat he posed to the world government's control over the seas. As the bounty poster fluttered in the wind, its message reverberated across the world, signaling a new era of uncertainty and upheaval in the vast expanse of the Grand Line. In the hallowed halls of Mary Gosa, the sanctum of the elders erupted into chaos. Just days earlier, they had reveled in their victory over those two little teenagers they deemed as upstarts. However, the euphoria was short-lived as news of Roger and his crew's discovery of the long-hidden secret spread like wildfire. Summoned by the enigmatic ruler Imusama, the elders found themselves walking a precarious tightrope, unsure of what repercussions awaited them. Imusama's summons were rare and not to be taken lightly. As they entered the supreme leader's presence, tension hung thick in the air. Yet, to their surprise, Imusama appeared nonchalant, almost indifferent to the news of the final island's revelation. With a mere glance at Roger's new bounty, Imusama dismissed the matter and returned to the serene garden, leaving the elders bewildered yet relieved. Chapter 65. Back in the confines of the elders' chamber, sighs of relief echoed off the walls. They couldn't fathom how Imusama had become aware of the situation. The sudden interest in certain matters raised suspicions among the council. Imusama's recent queries about seemingly trivial matters, such as the commotion created by Doflamingo's public display of punishment at the central square of the Holy Land, a descendant of the original 20 who dared to defy the Almighty, had sent shockwaves through their ranks. This showed the elders how truly bored the supreme leader had become. Doflamingo's fate had been sealed before his audience with the elders, yet his bold words, "My brother will come for me," about his brother's possible vengeance had piqued the 5 elders' curiosity and mockery, even earning a round of amusement from the enigmatic leaders of the world government. Little did Doflamingo know, his brother's heart lay silently beneath his now ravaged body, a silent testament to the consequences of defiance in the face of absolute power. How did we miss out on such a thing? Didn't we ban any studies on the poneglyphs? How did Roger manage to reach the final island? Elder Jew Peter's frustration was palpable as he questioned the oversight. It seems that someone from the Kojiki family aided Roger in finding and deciphering those poneglyphs. We must ensure that such occurrences are prevented in the future. We were fortunate that Imusama did not view this matter with severity, Elder Saturn expressed, sharing his concern. Originally, he had contemplated recalling Aanya to Mary Gosa due to her status as a celestial dragon and a god's knight. However, Recent developments had complicated their plans, especially with Dragon's unexpected defection. Perhaps Aanya should have handled the matter regarding Garp with more subtlety. Now, without the marine hero leading from the front, Roger's fame is growing unchecked. Say what you might about Garp, but he was a marine with a righteous persona. With him holed up in Marineford, there is no one capable of keeping Roger's rising fame in check. We cannot allow this to continue, we must get Garp back into action, Elder Nusjuro commented. When Imusama had instructed him to bring Doflamingo for a meeting, he initially feared repercussions for their failure. However, it turned out that Imusama's intentions were merely driven by curiosity. Now, they had to address this matter swiftly, as any action from Imusama could spell disaster for the world, even for the world nobles themselves. First, get in touch with Kong and have him try to get Garp back into action, Elder Mars suggested, expressing his views. As for Aanya, let her remain in the Marines. It seems like it would be a valuable lesson for the young one to learn some restraint. In the future, we can consider grooming her to lead the Marines. If this trend continues, the delicate balance we've maintained in the New World could be destroyed. Perhaps having Aanya by the Marines' side would be beneficial. His words resonated with the council, for the sea had already begun to show signs of chaos as more and more people were influenced by the rumors of One Piece. That's fine, but we need to address a serious matter, Elder Saturn said as he poured himself a cup of tea. Seems like our previous ban on poneglyphs and learning about history seems to be ineffective. We need to clean up and destroy every single person who even dares to delve into the secrets of the past. Maybe we must have the CP hunt down every person who is even remotely connected to studying these things. Only if there was a way to destroy these poneglyphs, we could have destroyed them all and been done with it, Elder Wakuri added, banging on the table with a rare hint of anger. Those dumb things are made with unknown material, with sea stone essence infused, so even with our powers, we cannot damage them. He had tried destroying those stupid monuments back in his youth, failing every time. And let's have the CP0 push for an alliance with Kaido again, we can just disguise it as a weapons trade or something else, we can't have Wano becoming too comfortable, Elder Nusjuro suggested. And Kaido still has the treasured mythical fruit, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. We can't let him get too ambitious. Have we had any success from Vegapunk in trying to recreate Kaido's devil fruit? No, we haven't had any recent successful updates regarding the artificial devil fruits from Punk Hazard, Elder Jew Peter explained. And that Vegapunk keeps running around. We must try to confine him to a particular place. He is too dangerous an asset to be left running around freely, especially with his knowledge about lineage factors. Currently, Vegapunk still held some form of freedom because he was still reluctant to start with the experiment for the lineage factor, which was essentially important for the elders. Just like that, this meeting between the elders put many of their decisions into action, which would eventually come to shape the new era. However, even they were unaware of the chaos that was going to unfold because of the actions of one man in the near future. Somewhere in the New World, the Oro Jackson lay anchored near an unmarked island. It had been almost a month since the news of them conquering the Grand Line and reaching the final island spread throughout the world. Rumors, each more exaggerated than the last, began to circulate, but none of them were anywhere close to the actual truth. The only group of people aware of the truth were now having a banquet on the island after reuniting with Shanks and Buggy. Earlier, they had left them back because Buggy was sick, at least that was the reason Roger gave to Shanks before they left them on this island. The mood was a mix of sadness and joy, as everyone in the crew knew that their journey was coming to an end. Roger, are you sure about this? We can still try our best to find those fruits, Rayleigh voiced his reluctance to bid farewell to his friend. Roger, after achieving his dream, had expressed his intention to disband the crew. I wish, Rayleigh, but no. My era is coming to an end. I was just born a bit earlier. Maybe, just maybe, if I was born a generation later, I would have taken part in the greatest adventure this world has ever seen, Roger lamented, gulping down a whole bottle of rum as he sighed. After learning the truth of the world, he realized he was ahead of his time. I wish Shanks and Buggy had joined us on the final journey, Scopper Gaban commented beside him while looking at the two youngsters, who were soundly sleeping next to Oden, who had already blacked out after trying to outdrink all of the Roger pirates. They had not taken the two apprentices on the journey to Laugh Tale, as Roger had deemed it too dangerous for them to get involved. Instead, he left them behind under the guise that Buggy had fallen ill and Shanks was staying to care for him. However, the truth was that Roger felt they might play important roles in the upcoming saga, and it was safer for them to stay out of the fray until they were ready to begin their own journeys. So, what are you planning to do next? Roger couldn't help but ask his friend, still holding on to the hope of saving his life. I don't know, maybe I'll try to explore those uncharted lands and see if I get lucky. You never know, I might find something that can cure you, Rayleigh shared, taking a sip from his own bottle of rum. So, you aren't going back to Sabayati? I thought that's where you would head first, Skopper Gaban commented, a smirk playing on his lips. They all knew Rayleigh had someone waiting for him in Sabayati. Rayleigh casually threw the rum bottle at Gaban, who easily dodged it. Ha ha ha, Rayleigh, Gaban is right, you know. Instead of trying to find a cure for me, you should go to Sabayati. Don't throw away the chance to tell her you love her, because tomorrow is never promised. Roger gently tapped on his friend's shoulder, encouraging him to pursue the person waiting for him. We'll cross that road when we get there. Well, how about you? Are you planning to find someone for yourself? Rayleigh couldn't help but ask, knowing his friend had found contentment in his life. Who knows? Maybe I'll be lucky enough to find someone who can love me despite knowing the true me. Maybe I'll start a family and spend my days happily until the end, Roger's laughter echoed, reflecting his uncertainty about the future. Come now, Captain, you sure are good at making grand jokes. You and your own family? I'm sure every girl out there would run away from you if they heard your name. And if they didn't run after hearing your name, I'm sure they would run after hearing your annoying laugh. Do you think any girl can handle that? Gaban teased, laughter bubbling from him. Roger joined in because he knew there was truth in Gaban's words. However, Rayleigh couldn't shake off Roger's words. How nice it would be if his friend truly settled down and started a family. Maybe he should go and meet Shuki before embarking on his quest to find a cure for Roger. After Roger had declared that they were disbanding, some wanted to be dropped off where they had deemed to return, and some wanted to stay to spend a little more time with their captain until he was dropped off. Their first destination was Wano to drop off Oden, who wanted to reunite with his family. Rayleigh clearly understood that the era of Roger pirates was coming to an end. Meanwhile, in Marineford, in the quarters assigned to Garp, Bogard lay on the bed, still recovering from the aftermath of the clash. He had emerged as the one most battered during the confrontation. Emotionally, he was still reeling from the loss of Ross. Kuzan sat by the window, gazing out at the waves, lost in thought. Garp's expression remained unreadable, he was suppressing a well of anger so deep that it threatened to consume him entirely. He hadn't left his quarters since the incident occurred. Despite attempts by Sengoku and others to reach out to him, Garp had rejected all offers of communication. The loss of Ross had hit him hard. For a fleeting moment, Garp entertained the idea of following in his son's footsteps, quitting the Marines, and challenging the world government head-on. However, something within him had held him back. Even Dragon's decision to leave the Marines didn't faze him, he understood why his son had made such a choice. As a father, though he couldn't openly support his son, he praised Dragon in his heart. His son had done what he himself couldn't do. Perhaps Ross was right, maybe he was nothing but a hypocrite. But then he sighed, acknowledging the many regrets he carried. Despite it all, he held on to a glimmer of hope in his heart. It was the only thing keeping him in check. Against all odds, he believed that the little monster he had groomed would somehow survive and return. Just as Garp was lost in his thoughts, the door to his house burst open, with an angry Kong kicking it down. Garp! You bastard, come out here! How long are you going to keep moping in here? Do you even know what's going on out there? Kong bellowed, already at his limits. He had mobilized the entire Marine Corps to try and regain some sort of control over the seas since news of Roger conquering the seas had spread. The New World was in complete disarray, every powerhouse and even mere nobodies had started a quest either to hunt down Roger or find the One Piece for themselves. The rumors were overwhelming, to the point that even fools without an ounce of strength in their name had taken to piracy. Some big names in the New World that had remained dormant had started moving. His new admiral, the one appointed by the government, was currently in Marigioase, safeguarding the world nobles, due to the recent turmoil. Sengoku and Zephyr were overwhelmed, trying to bring back some semblance of control in the New World. However, his strongest asset, the only one who could truly curb Roger's infamy, was holed up here. Chapter 66. Today, Kong has come to put an end to this nonsense. He knew what happened with Garp's student was ugly, but he didn't have the time to think about right and wrong now. The elders were already breathing down his neck regarding Roger's matter, and added to that, they had also assigned additional tasks despite their current lack of manpower. Kong-san, I still hold a modicum of respect for you. Please don't make me lose that as well, Garp's voice echoed as he stepped out of the room, eyeing the door, which had seen better days. Respect? Respect to hell with your respect, Garp. Do you know what's going on out there? And here you are doing what? Absolutely nothing, Kong fumed furiously, seeing the marine hero standing there as if the matter happening out at sea had no connection to him at all. Tell me, Kong-san, why should I care? I am just a vice admiral, and if I am not wrong, you have hundreds of vice admirals under your command. Why don't you send out a dozen and have them fix your problem? Garp was truly furious. If it weren't for Kong's order to return immediately, he might have somehow caught wind of the nefarious plan targeting Ross. Although he knew Kong was simply following orders, he still held some resentment. Today was not the first time in this month Kong had come to him for help to get out to the new world. Why should you care? Did you just ask me why you should care? Here, let me give you more than 100 reasons why you should care. Kong started throwing one report after another furiously while reading the main content. More than 12,000 killed. Here, this whole island was massacred. A dozen marine ships sank. Here, read this. Here. Kong started throwing out reports after reports portraying the drastic situation around the world. The world was in chaos, and the ones who were suffering were the common folk. After throwing down a stack of reports right in front of Garp's feet, he took out another stack, which were the recent bounty posters. Whitebeard Edward Newgate, Golden Lion Shiki, 100 Beast Kaido, Patrick Redfield, Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, San Juan Wolf, and finally, the golden bounty poster of the Pirate King himself. Kong threw more than 24 bounty posters. Every one of them is out there creating the carnage that you see in these reports. Every single innocent life might have been saved if you were out there instead of moping around here, Kong said with emotion. He knew how Garp was. Despite the sorrow in his heart, Garp was someone who truly wanted to serve justice for the innocents, and the reports in front of him showed the casualties that had been caused in just this 1 month. Garp, I may not understand what you are feeling, but at least I can relate. All I say is, don't condemn these innocent souls. Your presence out in the seas may change the lives of many innocents. Don't lose sight of what's in front of you. We need you, Garp, or rather, I need you. Unless I can keep these powerhouses in check, the entire sea will descend into chaos, and more innocents will die. Kong sighed, understanding that he could not force Garp, he would have to do it out of his own will. Don't worry about the world nobles, I have already spoken to the elders. You will no longer be restrained. You can do as you see fit. Just get out there and do what you do best. I have shared what I wanted to say, but the rest is up to you. Kong stood without bothering to pick up the reports and bounty posters. He knew Garp would not let him down, and the concession given by the elders worked in his favor for getting Garp back into the seas. If you still consider yourself a marine, then please do us both a favor. Put on your marine coat, get out there and help me bring some sort of stability to the chaotic seas. Roger is out there somewhere, and the longer he remains at large, the worse the situation will become. Eventually, the whole world will descend into chaos, Kong sighed. Even though he held the title of Fleet Admiral, he didn't know how else to convince the marine hero to rejoin the fray. With these words, Kong left Garp alone to make his decision. Unlike Garp, who was wishing for a miracle, there was one person who had absolute confidence, bordering on blind faith, that the young masters were alive, young Virgo. He had almost crumbled when he heard of the Donquixote family's fall. During the incident at the bay, he was away and unaware of the happenings until he heard the commotion. Now, he still believed Doffy and Ross were alive and resolved to grow strong, waiting for his young masters to return. He knew it in his gut that, despite half his heart being ripped out, Ross was alive somewhere out there. Virgo had immersed himself in training like a madman, and he was going to complete the mission that Doffy and Ross had given him. He was waiting and biding his time for the eventual return of his family. The Oro Jackson, carrying Roger's crew, glided silently through the dark waters, cloaked in the shroud of night. As it approached the shores of Wano, Oden stood at the bow, his gaze fixed on the land that had once been his home. What an impressive mess, all that wreckage from just trying to enter Wano. The navigator of the Oro Jackson observed the shore through his spyglass, noting the debris left behind by broken ships. If you choose the wrong current, the ship will be destroyed without making it anywhere near the shores of Wano, Oden remarked with pride as he watched the Oro Jackson expertly navigate through the treacherous waters. Meanwhile, Rayleigh, who also understood the truth that Wano was hiding, admired the country, which would become a major part of the new dawn. He couldn't help but comment, there is a reason for Wano's closed borders. But they will open these borders the day Joy Boy finally appears. Worry not, Rayleigh-san, I will open the border of Wano to the world before Joy Boy comes. Oden commented with a silent promise. After a heartfelt farewell and with a promise of meeting them again someday, Oden finally made it to the shores of Wano alone, where a grand welcome awaited him. Oden stepped onto the familiar soil of Wano. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face. And there she was, standing on the shore with a smile that could light up the darkest night. Toki, his beloved wife. Without a moment's hesitation, Oden rushed towards her, enveloping her in a tight embrace. Toki-chan, I've missed you so much, Oden whispered, his voice choked with emotion. And you, my dear Oden-sama, Toki replied, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Welcome home. As they stood there, lost in each other's embrace, Oden's children approached, their faces alight with excitement. They threw themselves into their father's arms, laughing and crying all at once. It was a moment of pure happiness, a family reunited after years of separation. You have grown so much, Momonosuke. Oden scooped his son up, and all his retainers also surrounded themselves with hope that what they believed would release them from this darkness. But the joy didn't stop there. As Oden and his family made their way through the streets of Wano, they were met with cheers and applause from the citizens. It seemed that the entire Kuri had turned out to welcome their beloved daimyo home. Oden was taken aback by the outpouring of love and support. He hadn't expected such a warm reception, especially after his tumultuous past. Turning to his retainers, he asked, "What's going on? Why are the people so happy to see me?" His retainers exchanged a knowing glance before Kinemon stepped forward, a proud smile on his face. Toki-sama has been working tirelessly to rebuild your reputation, my lord, he explained. She has helped the people in countless ways, and they have come to see you as a hero once again. Oden's heart swelled with pride as he listened to Kinemon's words. He knew that Toki was capable of great things, but her efforts had surpassed even his wildest expectations. Turning to his wife, he took her hand in his and said, "Toki-chan, I cannot thank you enough for all that you have done for me and for our people." Toki smiled warmly at her husband, her eyes shining with love and admiration. "It was my honor, Oden-sama," she replied. "I only wish to see you happy and respected once again." As they continued their journey through the streets of Wano, Oden couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the love and support of his people. He knew that he had a lot to catch up on, and as they reached the safety and comfort of their home, he turned to his retainers and said, "Tell me everything that has happened since I left. I want to know everything, from the moment I set sail to the day I returned." After receiving a thorough briefing from his retainers about the situation that had unfolded in his absence, Oden's fury knew no bounds. Words were not enough to contain the storm raging within him. Gripping both of his swords tightly, Oden's resolve was unwavering as he charged toward the direction of the capital. Determined to assess the true extent of the devastation, Oden chose not to conceal his identity as he wandered through the streets of the entire Wano Kuni. His heart clenched at the sight of the desolation that surrounded him, homes reduced to rubble, streets littered with the debris of lives shattered by tyranny. "Is that Oden-sama? It can't be. He's been gone for so long." Whispers echoed through as they saw the mighty Oden walk through the streets of the capital. "Oden-sama has returned. Praise be to the heavens. Our savior has come back to us." Oden's name was akin to that of a legendary warrior in Wano, and at the sight of Oden's return, hope flickered once again in the hearts of the citizens of Wano. Approaching a group of weary townsfolk gathered around a meager fire, Oden's voice rang out with a question heavy with sorrow. "What has become of Wano?" he inquired, his tone laced with empathy for their plight. A woman, her eyes red-rimmed and weary, looked up at the hope in their midst, as she was aware of Oden's identity. "It's been more than a year since Kaido and Orokai seized control, Oden-sama," she murmured, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "The people suffer under their tyranny, hunger gnaws at our bellies, and those who dare to resist are met with merciless reprisal. Please save us from this hell." Oden's fists clenched with a mix of rage and grief as he absorbed the grim reality of his homeland's plight. Though he had heard whispers of Kaido's brutality, witnessing the devastation firsthand only fueled his resolve to bring about change. As he traversed the entirety of Wano, Oden bore witness to scenes of unspeakable suffering, families torn apart, livelihoods destroyed, hope hanging by a thread. Yet amidst the despair, he glimpsed flickers of defiance, small acts of resistance that spoke to the indomitable spirit of the Wano people. As dawn broke, casting a golden hue upon the ravaged land, Oden stood at the precipice of the capital, his heart heavy with the burden of responsibility. Despite the perils that lay ahead, he vowed to confront Kaido and Orokai, challenge their tyranny, and restore honor to Wano. With a silent prayer for strength and courage, Oden steeled himself and unsheathed both his blades for the arduous battle that lay ahead. The fate of Wano hung in the balance, and he alone could be the beacon of hope that would guide his people towards a brighter future. He moved in the direction where Orokai was so as to put an end to this menace once and for all. Chapter 67. On the shores of a sparsely populated island in the first half of the Grand Line, a man stood in serene stillness, his figure silhouetted against the backdrop of the vast, shimmering sea. Though his sightless eyes remained closed, only the whites were visible beneath his eyelids. He seemed to absorb the beauty of his surroundings through some other sense. The man appeared to be in his late 20s, yet there was a certain wisdom etched into the lines of his face, as if he had lived far beyond his years. An X-shaped scar marred the left side of his forehead, its presence was a testament to some profound decisions he had made in the past. It stretched over both eyes, a stark reminder of his self-inflicted blindness. Despite his lack of sight, there was an air of tranquility about him, as if he had found solace in his darkness. His short, dark hair framed his face, while a mustache and beard added a touch of ruggedness to his countenance. He stood tall and imposing, clad in a light purple yukata secured by a dark purple belt, the colors of his attire mirroring the hues of twilight. Over his shoulders draped a cloak of the same shade, its fabric billowing gently in the sea breeze. In his hand, he held a shikomizu, a Japanese sword stick that doubled as a cane, its polished surface gleaming softly in the sunlight. With each step, he moved with purpose, guided by an innate sense of direction honed through years of adaptation to his blindness. His feet were encased in geta sandals, their wooden soles echoing softly against the sandy shore. White bandages wrapped around both of his forearms, a testament to battles fought and wounds endured. Handguards adorned both of his hands, a silent reminder of the strength that lay beneath his seemingly tranquil exterior. As he stood on the edge of the shore, a sense of serenity enveloped him, his presence a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity in this cruel world. Despite the challenges he had faced in his life, he remained steadfast, a silent guardian of the weak and the vulnerable. His gaze turned towards the small wooden cabin that just lay a few hundred meters from the shoreline, as if anticipating the next chapter of his journey. As Isho stood on the tranquil shores, his mind wandered back to the young teen he had rescued from the jaws of a monstrous sea king just a month prior. The memory of finding the boy, barely clinging to life, stirred something deep within him. Despite his blindness, Isho's advanced observation haki had allowed him to sense the direness of the teen's condition. When he discovered the unconscious form of the boy, his heart sank. A gaping hole marred the teen's neck and chest, and a chunk of his heart was missing, a testament to the ferocity of the life-threatening battle that the child must have endured. But even in the face of such grievous wounds, the teen's grip on his sword remained steadfast, a symbol of defiance against the cruel hand of fate. Isho had acted swiftly, using every ounce of his medical knowledge he and the fellow residents of the island possessed and the limited resources available on the island to tend to the boy's injuries. Day after day, he watched over him, marveling at the resilience of the human spirit as the teen fought against the looming specter of death. Despite the odds stacked against him, the teen's heart continued to beat with unwavering determination, a testament to his indomitable will. It was as if he were challenging fate itself, refusing to succumb to the darkness that threatened to consume him. As the days turned into weeks, Isho found himself filled with a sense of awe and admiration for the boy lying before him. Each breath he took and each heartbeat that echoed through the silent night served as a reminder of the power of the human spirit to defy even the most daunting of odds. And so, as Isho stood on the shores of the island, his thoughts filled with the young teen who had captured his heart. He couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. For in the face of adversity, he had witnessed firsthand the strength of the human will, a force capable of transcending even the darkest of nights. As Isho immersed himself in his thoughts, a massive sea king emerged from the depths, lunging towards him with intent to engulf him whole. Unperturbed, Isho calmly drew his blade. "Gravity blade," Isho whispered, and in an instant, a tremendous pressure enveloped the sea beast, pinning it to the sandy shore despite its thrashing. With a single fluid motion, Isho struck upwards, cleanly beheading the sea king before re-sheathing his blade. Originally, Isho had come to the island in search of food. Despite being a devil fruit user with the ability to float above water using his gravity powers, he chose not to stray too far from the wooden cabin where the unconscious teen lay. The island was known to harbor dangerous beasts, and leaving the teen undefended was not a risk Isho was willing to take. Fortunately, luck was on his side, as the Sea King had approached him willingly, offering itself as both a distraction from his thoughts and sustenance. Isho wasted no time in collecting the massive Sea King's corpse before heading back towards the safety of the wooden cabin. As Isho returned to the cabin, he noticed that the young blonde teen had yet to awaken from his slumber. However, his body had been recovering at an astonishing rate. Despite being unconscious, Isho had made it a norm to feed the child soup made from Sea King flesh and bones, which the boy's body greedily accepted, devouring massive amounts of energy as if it were trying to use it to repair itself. Isho had never seen anyone with such a monstrous physique, and he used his observation haki to gauge the true extent of the teen's prowess. Glancing at the items laid out beside the bed, Isho observed a tattered yet high-quality coat, a small crucifix concealing a small knife and alongside it a powerful blade that even gave Isho chills, and finally, a peculiar fruit. Isho instantly recognized it as a devil fruit, being a devil fruit user himself, but he had no idea what specific abilities it bestowed upon its consumer, nor did he particularly care. Just as Isho's attention was drawn to the items, the teen wrapped in bandages stirred, finally awakening after more than a month of slumber. Ross had returned to consciousness. My eyelids weighed so heavily, and all I wanted was to sink back into slumber. Yet, deep down, I knew that if I succumbed to sleep once more, I might never awaken again. Despite the overwhelming fatigue and pain, I summoned the strength to pry my eyes open. As my vision adjusted to the dim light of the cabin, I noticed a tall figure standing at the side of my bed. Recognition dawned slowly as the details of his appearance registered in my mind. Despite my murky mind, I still had the presence of mind to recognize the person standing in front of me immediately. It was none other than the man who would come to be known as Fujitora, the future Admiral recruited under the World Military Draft about 2 decades from now, Isho. He must currently be in his late 20s. But then my mind raced to understand how I had ended up here. Fragments of the memory of my fight with Aanya came flooding back, and the pain that accompanied my memories hit me like a sea train at full throttle. Isher, I thought to myself, not making it known that I had recognized the man. Composing myself with my voice hoarse from disuse, I remarked. You saved me." The man nodded solemnly, his expression unreadable behind the closed eyelids that covered his blind eyes. "Indeed, young man. You've been unconscious for over a month. But you're awake now." I struggled to sit up, wincing as a sharp pang shot through my chest. What happened to me? How did I end up here?" Ishire's gaze softened with a hint of sympathy. "You were found on the brink of death, swallowed by a sea king. I happened to come across you while passing by this island. It's a miracle you're still alive." Memories of the attack at Marineford flooded back completely, accompanied by a rush of pain and panic. "I remember now. Thank you for saving me." He nodded his head slightly, acknowledging my gratitude. "You're welcome. But you still have a long road to recovery ahead of you. You have been unconscious for more than a month." As Ishire's words sank in, I felt a surge of disbelief wash over me. More than a month. It was unfathomable that I had been unconscious for so long. My hand instinctively went to the bandages covering my chest, where my heart had been torn out. Using my observation haki, I sensed that the missing chunk had almost completely healed. No wonder I had been in such a deep slumber. My body had shut down to conserve energy and aid in my recovery. The aroma of piping hot soup filled the air, and I realized that Ishire must have been diligently feeding me to help my body heal. Gratitude swelled within me, and I knew that I would never forget his kindness. But for now I had more important things to do. I had to find what happened to my brother Dafi and my family. If what Aanya said was true, then the entire family was targeted and I had no idea of their fate. "Thank you for taking care of me while I was down," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "I will remember this favor forever." I realized that I couldn't afford to waste any more time as I was already a month late and my instinct was gnawing on me to hurry up and look for my brother. As for repaying Isho, I would do it sooner or later in the future. Gathering my belongings, I made to leave the cabin. But as I reached the door, weakness washed over me, and I stumbled. Ishire was quick to steady me, his concern evident in his voice. "Are you sure it's wise to move about in your condition, young one?" he asked, his hand firm on my shoulder. Despite his warning, I knew that I couldn't delay any longer. "I need to go, to North Blue," I replied, determination flashing in my eyes. "I need to know what happened to my family. Before I could take another step, Ishire's voice halted me in my tracks. Kid, by the way, I forgot to ask, what's your name? My name is Isho. If you don't mind me accompanying you, let me take you to North Blue. I've always wanted to go there. Isho felt a faint yet undeniable pull towards the teen, as if fate itself were urging him to accompany him on his journey. It was a sensation he couldn't ignore, a gut feeling that whispered of significant events to come. So, trusting his instincts, he made the decision to offer his assistance, sensing that this chance encounter held more significance than he could comprehend. With each passing moment, the conviction grew stronger within him. There was something about this young man who stood before him, that resonated deeply with Isho. He couldn't shake the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason and that together they would embark on a journey that would shape the course of their lives and perhaps even the world itself. My name is Ross, I replied, clasping his hand firmly. And thank you for offering to take me to North Blue, and I accept your offer, Isho-san. Someday, I promise you that I will repay this kindness. I knew that in my current weakened condition traveling to North Blue alone would be a foolish errand, so I quickly decided to take Isho's offer. I didn't know why he offered to take me to North Blue, but I'm not going to think too deeply into it. As we shook hands, a sense of relief settled over me. With Isho's assistance, I was one step closer to uncovering the truth about what happened to Daffy and my family and the events that had transpired during my time in slumber. Chapter 68. It had been more than 2 months since myself and Isho began our journey back towards North Blue. We tried to avoid any government-affiliated routes as much as possible. During this time, from rumors and news, I had already deduced that my family and its affiliated members were no more, and Daffy's fate was all but a mystery. There was not even a snippet of news about the fate of the leader of the Donquixote pirates. The elders had completely suppressed the matters regarding that of a former celestial dragon, but despite their efforts the rumors of such an event simmered throughout the world government organization, and I was lucky enough to have caught one of these agents who had recognized me, and I had no thoughts of letting him go alive because I didn't want the news of me being alive to surface yet. Upon learning of Daffy's capture and his subsequent fate of punishment in the form of being crucified in the square as a form of entertainment for the rest of those bastards who called themselves descendants of gods, I felt lost, completely helpless. Anger surged through me like an unrelenting storm. Only the hope of my brother holding on, or he had made his escape by some sort of a miracle, kept me going towards North Blue, because, even in such a dire case, myself and Daffy had a place set aside in North Blue as a backup, and I wanted to know if anyone else from the family had made it out of this tragedy. During the time I ventured towards North Blue, Garp, who had been holed up in Marineford, ventured back into the New World like a bloodthirsty beast on a hunt. One famous pirate after another fell into the hands of the marine hero, venting out all his anger on the pirates as he always does. Even the infamous Red Count was humbled by the marine hero and was imprisoned in Impel Down. Kuzan also actively worked in the New World, attempting to stabilize the seas. Under Garp's relentless assault in these months, the New World calmed down a bit. Garp had even taken down quite a few dangerous pirates who created havoc, such as San Juan Wolf, and countless others who had wreaked havoc in the name of the aftermath of the ascension of the Pirate King. However, despite the efforts of the marine hero, Roger's name was etched in everyone's hearts as the Pirate King, and those from the Roger pirates had entirely vanished into the wind. Meanwhile, Dragon had become the leader of a group called the Freedom Fighters, which had attracted the attention of the world government, and a really high first bounty was set on the former Marine Admiral's head. His news of becoming an admiral was also buried, ensuring that such information did not surface among civilians, although most Marines were already aware of Dragon's promotion. Just as I was lost in thought, Isho's voice cut through the air. Ross-kun, we are here. Despite being blind, Isho used his observation haki, to see the world in his own way. We had already made it to the island in North Blue, which was supposed to be the last hideout known only to myself and Daffy. Every other location in North Blue, which was a stronghold of the Donquixote family, was razed to the ground, and the fate of the other places in the paradise should be the same. I understood that someone from within the family had betrayed us, making us completely vulnerable. Despite experiencing a similar betrayal in my first life, it seemed like I hadn't learned my lesson. I had become complacent just because I thought I knew how the world would progress, completely forgetting that the moment I stepped into this world, everything had changed. It seemed like my ignorance, pride, and overconfidence had cost me too much. After our caravel made it to the shabby port, I disembarked, leaving Isho behind. This was the island where it all started for me, the island where my brother Daffy had awakened his conqueror's haki and I had taken over Ross's body and soul. With hurried footsteps, I rushed forth. Though I wasn't a God-fearing person, I instinctively held onto the crucifix around my neck for hope for a miracle. Finally, after a few minutes, I came to a shabby-looking house that seemed completely run down. Seeing the house brought back memories. This was the house where the Donquixote family, which had left the status of celestial dragons behind, settled down. This was the home where Ross and Doffy's mother died of sickness. This was the place that sowed the seeds of hatred in Doffy's heart that almost made him kill Homing. I used my observation haki, hoping against hope. Luckily, I detected 3 vital signs from within the abandoned house. Though the vital signs were faint, I could easily pick them up. Just as I entered the shabby house, my rushed movements alerted the occupants within. I could hear faint noises of guns being cocked, ready to fire a hail of bullets. As I stepped inside, the guns rang out, all 3 opening fire. However, despite my recent brush with death months prior, I had completely recovered. My dance with death had allowed my physique to evolve, and even my armament haki had a major breakthrough. But despite these advantages, I hadn't thought about training for these past 2 months. I felt lost, and the uncertainty of Doffy's current made me distracted. Neither could I delve myself into training, as my body was in the process of recovering. Clang, clang. The bullets bounced off my body as I instinctively covered myself in armament haki. I could even detect a few sea stone bullets among the ones shot. As the rain of bullets stopped, I finally laid eyes on the 3 occupants. It was Treble, a kid with white spiky hair who seemed about 8 or 9 years old, and another child about 5 years old. All 3 sported varied degrees of injuries that were clumsily treated, and Treble's condition seemed the worst. It seemed like, after being away for all these years, Treble didn't recognize me. Realizing who the 2 kids holding rifles were, I felt relieved somewhat that not everything was lost. One was Gladius, and the other was Rob Lucci. As the 2 kids hastily moved to reload their rifles, Treble, who seemed to be on his last leg, launched a wax attack coated with what little armament haki he could muster. I dodged the attack using my future sight. Treble. Enough, it's me, Ross. I shouted, my aura surging, freezing him in his tracks. Trying to get his attention, I easily swatted away the second attack that he launched. Treble froze, finally realizing it was me who he was attempting to strike, and dropped the gun. It seemed like the 2 attacks and the abrupt shock were too much for him to handle. He fell to his knees, spitting out blood, and both kids moved towards him to make sure he was all right. That was when I understood how dire Treble's condition truly was. His body was littered with life-threatening wounds, and he even had a few sea stone bullet wounds that hadn't been treated properly, and it seemed like those fragments were impeding with his ability to heal and use his devil fruit powers. Ross, you're alive. Ha ha ha, you made it. You really made it alive. Doffy was right, Doffy was always right. Treble coughed again but managed to sit himself against the wall with the help of the 2 kids. I moved next to Treble, kneeling beside him and quickly checking his condition. In my time in the Marines, I had picked up quite a few medical skills, but the shabby house didn't have anything to treat Treble. With the voice of all things active, I could already see that Treble was on his last legs, holding on like a last flicker of flame, as if wanting to fulfill his one final objective. Treble, where is Doffy? What about the rest? What exactly happened? I questioned Treble, meanwhile asking the 2 kids to run towards the shore and find a caravel with a blind man to get some medical supplies. Although they hesitated, my chilling aura left them no room for negotiation. After Treble gave them the go-ahead, introducing me to the kids, they sprinted out to find the medicines that could save Treble. But I already knew it was too late. I couldn't tell the kids that because I knew they cared for Treble, who must have staked his life to keep them safe. Tell me, Treble, what happened? Tell me everything. I calmed down a bit, not wanting to put Treble under more pressure. We became too comfortable and we reached out too far. We were not ready for the new world, Ross. Despite your warnings, we became complacent, and that led to our downfall. Treble started explaining the events since the Donquixote family ventured into the new world. But we had measures to retreat even if the world government retaliated. How did they get their hands on Doffy? By Treble's response, I knew that the world government's claw had reached Doffy, but I wanted to clearly understand how, because as much as I knew about Doffy's character, even if he smelled a small doubt, he would have retreated. It was that bastard, Marcus. We thought he was one of our own. He was with us for years, leading our expansion in both Paradise and the New World by staking his life multiple times. He even saved many of our lives, including Doffy's, a couple of times when we were in danger. We had come to accept him as one of our own. Treble roared in anger. However, the bastard betrayed us. I don't understand exactly why, but Doffy had sent me back to North Blue earlier to maintain things here as he had already decided to retreat from the New World. His voice softened a bit as he spoke of Doffy. But Marcus, that bastard, exposed all our plans. As one of our core members, he had access to most of our secrets and connections. Treble shivered, and though he was a cruel pirate, he genuinely cared about the people he was attached to, and being betrayed by one of their own had hit him hard. Treble, that still doesn't explain how things happened. Maybe they could have taken all our assets, our hideouts, everything. But how did they get their hands on Doffy with all of you surrounding him, even if that bastard betrayed my brother? I questioned. Doffy must have retreated or escaped, as I was sure both Diamante and Senor would have staked their lives to create a chance for Doffy to escape, unless they were faced with overwhelming odds and completely cornered with no way out. It was that bastard Kaido. He stabbed us in the back. He called Doffy to meet him personally for some sort of a deal and betrayed us by forming some kind of deal with the government. Senor managed to alert me immediately through our transponder snail right before all the connections cut off, before they were completely surrounded. They hit us everywhere, Ross, even our most remote bases and hideouts. Marcus must have dug out every single piece of information about us. I tried to evacuate the base at Spider Miles, but they were already there. Lao Ji, Mach Vice, they all fell. Jana managed to save these two kids by almost sacrificing herself. She is on the island as well, but I don't know if she can hold on. We escaped Spider Miles because it was completely surrounded. We have been running. Luckily, Doffy had told me about this hideout before I returned to North Blue, just in case. It seems like his intuition was right. Now, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, revealing the true depth of betrayal that led to my brother's demise. It wasn't solely Marcus who stabbed him in the back. Kaido played a role in orchestrating the tragedy as well. Had I known of such treachery beforehand, I would have urged Garp to put an end to Kaido's life when he had the chance. But dwelling on regrets now would only serve to deepen the wounds. Instead, I turned to Treble, urging him to share every detail he possessed about the events that led to the downfall of our family. Chapter 69. However, the more details I heard from Treble, the more rage flared in my heart. It was a mess of chaotic emotions, wrath and helplessness threatening to consume me entirely. The realization that my brother was lost to me because of our own foolish mistakes, coupled with the unknown fate of Doffy, weighed heavily on my soul. Added to that sadness was an overwhelming anger, threatening to consume me whole. Despite my bleeding fists from repeatedly pounding the floor, I couldn't stop. Treble, despite his weakened state, reached out a trembling hand toward me, his voice hoarse but sincere. Ross, I know it's difficult to accept, but it's the truth. I never liked you or the way you influenced Doffy, trying to confine him within a set of rules. That wasn't him, that wasn't Doffy. He only followed your rules because he loved and trusted you. Even after all these years, he never forgot any of the guidelines you set, even if they didn't align with his beliefs. Do you know why he still followed them? It's because your brother trusted you more than himself. Find him, I'm sure he's waiting for you. Doffy never lost hope in you. Treble coughed, his words interrupted by his own weakness. I don't have much time left, but you need to stay strong, Ross. Doffy wouldn't want you to give in to despair. His time may be running out, for all we know. With difficulty, Treble reached into his wax body and pulled out a small chest, presenting it to me. This was Doffy's gift to you. He always believed you were the only one worthy of this fruit. With a solemn expression, Treble pushed the chest toward me. I was originally angry with you, thinking it was your fault for Doffy's fate. If it weren't for you, he may have consumed this fruit. Maybe, just maybe, if you weren't in his life, he may have lived differently. Maybe he wouldn't have ruled the world, but he might have done things differently. I even considered feeding this fruit to someone else or selling it. But then I realized I was being petty. It was his wish and your brother's gift to you. I couldn't bring myself to deprive Doffy of his wish. With Treble's words sinking in, I had a vague feeling of what the chest held. I now understood why my brother kept saying repeatedly every time I questioned that the rumble fruit was never found, so that was his reason to me why he had consumed the flame fruit. But the truth was, Doffy had found it and chose to keep it for me. As I opened the small chest, inside lay a round, pear-shaped fruit that tapered off towards the stem, resembling a loquat. Its golden yellow peel featured the overlapping swirl pattern typical of devil fruits while forming sharp, jagged outgrowths all over that varied in length, width, and direction, resembling sparks of electricity. I immediately recognized the fruit, there was no mistaking it, it was the legendary rumble fruit, rumored to be the strongest logia out there. Legends had it that if one could truly master this fruit, they would be akin to an ancient weapon by themselves. Treble's breathing grew shallow, and his eyes struggled to stay open as he mustered the strength to speak once more. "Ross, promise me," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Promise me you'll find Doffy and you both need to go after your dreams. You guys wanted to rule the world, and although most of our family is no more, the family believes in you to carry out all our dreams alongside you. Don't let anyone who was involved in this matter escape. They all must pay for what they've done." His words pierced through me like a blade, stirring up a storm of emotions within my heart. Despite our tumultuous past that Treble mentioned that I now came to regret, I had always been suspicious of these people despite them doing so much for Doffy. It hurt thinking despite their loyalty to Doffy I had been petty because of my insecurities from past life. I couldn't deny the sincerity in Treble's plea. "I promise," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. "I'll do whatever it takes to make Doffy's dream, no our family's dream, the dream of everyone who perished a reality. And as for who were even remotely involved in bringing us down, I will hunt them, I will hunt down every last one of them, no one will escape." Treble's gaze softened, a flicker of relief passing through his weary eyes. "Thank you, Ross," he murmured, his voice barely audible now. "And please, take care of the kids and Gila too if she makes it. And the kids, remember, they're the future of the family." With those final words, Treble's hand fell limply to the ground, and his breathing ceased. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked down at Treble's lifeless form, a mixture of grief and determination swirling within me. I vowed to honor his final wishes, to help achieve our dreams. So what if people say that I am working for my brother's dream? Doffy is my brother and it was my life and I will decide what to do with it. And now with the death of most in the family, this was no longer just Doffy's dream, it was now the dream of everyone that the family had lost. As for the opinions of the rest, to hell with it, to hell with them all, and to ensure that vengeance was served for all those who had wronged us, I now set aside my old prejudice and decided to embrace my calling with all my soul. Feeling like a part of me was severed, I was overwhelmed by a peculiar sense of loss and liberation at the same time. Despite the intense grief and pain, I couldn't help but wonder if I had become less human or if my love for my family wasn't as strong as I believed. Perhaps, in some strange way, I had come to make peace with my recent failures after hearing Treble's words, but I had resolved myself to find what exactly happened to my brother and find him soon because my gut said that time was running out. My mind raced with 1,000 conflicting emotions as I sat there in front of Treble's lifeless body, clutching the small chest in my hand. It had been 2 days since Treble's death, and I had given the man the burial he deserved despite my lack of time. Gladius and Rob were also present, and even Isho joined despite knowing that the man we were burying was a pirate and a criminal. He did not condemn the dead for their deeds in life. Gladius and Rob were already aware of my true identity within the Donquixote family. It seemed like I was a legend among them, a young master whose status was equal to Doffy himself. Sitting by the shore, I gazed at the horizon as the waves lapped at my feet. I was yet to completely decide on my upcoming course of actions. My thoughts wandered, wondering how much Doffy might be suffering at the hands of those bastards in case he was captured. I vowed to repay every ounce of pain and humiliation they might have inflicted on my family. Lost in my thoughts, I didn't realize when Isho appeared with the 2 kids in tow. I hadn't moved from the spot since we buried Treble. Isho had accepted my request and had helped find Gila and treated her. Although her injuries were grave, it was not as worse as Treble's condition. With our intervention, Gila would make it. "Ross-kun, are you all right?" Isho asked, settling next to me without a care for the wet sand. The kids followed suit, their presence a silent comfort. "I'm lost, Isho-san, I don't know what path I should take anymore," I confessed, my voice heavy with uncertainty. "I instinctively feel like I should rush out to find my brother, but then I don't know where to start, I don't even know what exactly to do anymore. A part of me wants to give up, and another part of me wants to burn this world." My admission hung in the air, the weight of it pressing down on me. Despite my promise to Treble, I couldn't find the right direction to start. I had underestimated the elders, the rulers of this world, and I had paid dearly. My pride and overconfidence came at a staggering cost. Both in my past and present lives, I have been blind to my own strengths and weaknesses. Now, with my brother's fate completely unknown, I felt adrift in a sea of uncertainty. "Tell me, Ross-kun, do you know what the purpose of life is? Isho questioned, his voice carrying a weight of wisdom, as he used his gravity powers to gently move a stranded turtle back towards the sea. I remained silent, unsure of how to answer the blind man. He was someone who had blinded himself because he could not bear to witness the cruelty of this world, a stark contrast to my own experiences and outlook. Isho could be said as the extreme opposite of what Daffy and I stood for, but here the man was sitting trying to comfort me despite knowing what kind of man I truly was, and the past 2 months have made it at least a bit clear with what my true character was. It was especially evident with how I treated the captured Marines and government agents. Remember, Ross-kun, Isho continued, his tone gentle yet firm, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by a lack of meaning and purpose. You are simply lost. Find your meaning and purpose. It doesn't have to be something grand, just something that your heart truly desires. His words struck a chord within me, resonating with the turmoil I felt inside. Despite his cryptic nature, I knew Isho was trying to help. There was a sense of understanding in his blind gaze, as if he could see into the depths of my soul, and I found myself inexplicably grateful for his guidance. He already knew about my past as a Marine and the betrayal I had faced at the hands of my former comrades, yet he offered his wisdom without judgment or expectation. With a newfound understanding, I realized that to give meaning to my life once more, I must have a purpose larger than myself. Determined not to feel lost anymore, I accepted that Dongquixote family members who felt their spirit lived on through me. My purpose became clear, to immortalize the Dongquixote family name in this world forever, achieving what they truly desired and going even beyond. With resolute determination, I grasped the small chest and walked into the sea, under the bewildered gazes of Isho and the kids. I was different now, ready to start fresh from scratch. From that moment onward, I vowed to ensure that no one I cared for suffered the same fate as Treble and the rest. Gladius and Lucci relied on me, and I would protect them as my family. Renewed in my resolve, I cast aside all doubts and immersed myself in the sea, and with powerful strokes I soon reached a small island nearby. After reaching the central part of the island, which only spanned a few hundred meters, I carefully opened the chest. Even before I completely opened the chest, the surrounding climate roiled in sheer chaos. The entire world seemed to resonate with me. The sheer power and aura I radiated caused even the Sea Kings to flee. Unleashing my house Hoku Haki to the fullest, I commanded the world's flow to bend to my will. Dark clouds filled the sky, and the winds howled, stirring up the entire island where I stood and all its surroundings, engulfing most of the islands around. Though not prosperous, it housed a decent population. Isho stood protectively on the shore, shielding the kids from the pressure. Both children had succumbed to my overwhelming conqueror's haki, which grew stronger with each passing second. Chapter 70. I could have consumed the fruit anywhere safe, away from the sea. But I knew in my heart that I was not meant to become a landlubber forever. Eventually I would overcome my weaknesses, and I was willing to go to any length to achieve it. My instinct believed in that possibility wholeheartedly. Defying death twice already, I sought to challenge fate once again. If my intuition proved wrong, I would be buried beneath the sea in the future for my recklessness, like many others who might have tried to challenge the weakness that came with the devil fruit, and so be it. Without hesitation, I finally decided to consume the rumble fruit in hand. Even if the fruit was the creation of the devil himself, I would make this power my own, answering only to my will and not fearing the sea. As the taste of the fruit flooded my senses, I felt its power merging with my being. It seemed to respond to the sea water, as if every devil fruit had a will of its own. My voice of all things made me understand the fruit's struggle, challenging the dominance of the sea itself. With one last thought, I took the last bite of the devil fruit right in the heart of the small island, right in the middle of the turbulent ocean. As I sank deeper into the feeling of the newfound state with each bite, a profound transformation began to unfold. With the legendary rumble fruit fully consumed, I felt its power coursing through me like lightning itself. As I took the final bite, a surge of energy rippled outward, igniting a spectacle that would forever alter the fabric of the sea. At that precise moment, the skies above cracked open with a deafening roar. Bolts of lightning streaked across the darkened heavens, illuminating the horizon with an otherworldly brilliance. The clouds swirled and churned, swirling into a tempestuous vortex fueled by my newfound power. Beneath the waves, the ocean stirred with a ferocity unseen before. Tidal waves rose and crashed with thunderous might, carving a path through the depths with unstoppable force. The sea itself seemed to tremble in awe of the electrifying display unfolding within its depths. As the lightning fruit merged with my being, I felt a surge of raw energy coursing through every fiber of my being. It was as if the very essence of the storm had taken root within me, granting me command over the forces of nature themselves. Above the surface, Isho and the few civilians who still remained conscious watched in wonder as the sea roiled and churned with untold power. The air crackled with electricity, sending shivers down their spines as they bore witness to the birth of a new legend. With the final burst of lightning, the transformation was complete. The sea no longer held the calmness it once held, even though I was on the shore. The momentum that I was creating completely left the surrounding waters in chaos. Everything within me had a transformation. My observation haki just skyrocketed and reached an unprecedented level. As for my physique, it was being tempered with every breath I took, and the lighting energy coursing through me was tempering my physique continuously. I even felt that the weakness of the sea was reduced somewhat, but I didn't have a true comparison about how much restraint the sea would have on each individual devil fruit user. Although I did not know how exactly this worked, maybe it was because of my dual souls or maybe because I was not a being from this world, but I did not care anymore. I was brought to this world, maybe as a mistake or with a purpose. However, I had resolved myself to make this life my own. I emerged from the other island, which was already sinking, unable to handle the sheer raw power of lightning and haki that I had emitted, a figure wreathed in crackling energy, a living embodiment of the storm itself. The sea bowed before me, its waves parting in reverence for the power I now wielded. In that moment, I knew that I had become something more than mortal. I had become a force of nature, a harbinger of the tempest to come. And as I gazed upon the world with eyes alight with newfound purpose, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Deep within the heart of Pangaea Castle lay a place so forbidden that even the 5 elders required express permission to enter. Here, amidst the labyrinthine corridors, lay a beautiful garden where the enigmatic ruler of the world, Imu, resided. It was Imu's personal sanctuary, a tranquil oasis hidden from the prying eyes of the world. Within the garden, Imu stood as if frozen in time, surrounded by a myriad of colorful butterflies. The delicate creatures flitted around Imu's outstretched palm, dancing to an unseen melody. Suddenly, Imu's eyes snapped open, a flicker of something akin to excitement igniting within them. It had been centuries since Imu felt such a rush, the thrill of a challenge stirring within his immortal soul. In a swift motion, Imu clenched his fist, and the butterflies fell lifeless to the ground. Thoughts raced through Imu's mind as he contemplated the significance of the disturbance in the sea. This was no ordinary occurrence, someone had shattered the chains of fate, defying the impossible. Imu's pressure was completely released, which immediately descended the entire Holy Land into chaos. "Joy Boy, have you finally revealed yourself?" Imu murmured, his voice tinged with anticipation. But then a realization dawned on him. "No, this isn't Joy Boy. This is someone different, someone who even wills to defy the curse of the sea." A manic laughter bubbled forth from Imu's lips, a sound that echoed through the silent garden, and waves after waves of conqueror's haki burst forth, sending ripples throughout the Holy Land. Imu's thoughts momentarily strayed towards the teen who still defiantly held onto his life, waiting for his brother to come to his rescue. Even Imu himself was amused by the resilience of the Dongquixote family child. Despite seeing the heart of his brother, the kid held on defiantly against all odds for more than 3 months now. It was just a fleeting thought. Imu then thought of the disturbance in the sea. "This world is truly fascinating," Imu exclaimed, his eyes gleaming with newfound vigor. "I never imagined I would encounter another being capable of stirring my soul as Joy Boy once did. Finally, after all this time, it seems I can feel alive once more." In response to Imu's outburst, the Knights of the Gods swiftly mobilized, securing the entirety of the forbidden area. Imu's existence was a closely guarded secret, hidden even from the world nobles themselves. However, the sudden loss of composure from the supreme existence had reverberated throughout Mary Gosa, rendering all but the strongest individuals unconscious due to the sheer overwhelming power of the haki. The elders, alarmed by the unprecedented turn of events, hastened towards the core of Pangaea Castle. It had been centuries since Imu had displayed such extreme reactions, the last time being during the fabled clash during the time of Joy Boy. As they approached, a sense of dread gripped them, for they knew that whatever had transpired within the depths of the castle was beyond their comprehension. As the 5 elders reached the central area, the resounding laughter of Imu persisted, echoing through the silent corridors of Pangaea Castle. The Knights of the Gods, God's Knights, had effectively sealed off the entire vicinity, ensuring that only those privy to Imu-sama's existence and of Admiral level strength or higher remained conscious amidst the overwhelming pressure emitted by the supreme ruler. "Imu-sama," the 5 elders intoned in unison, their voices reverent and laden with apprehension. Yet, none among them dared to intrude upon the sanctity of the garden where Imu resided. Instead, they knelt outside its boundaries, patiently awaiting the moment when the ruler would deign to address them. Minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity as the elders waited in mounting unease under the sheer might of the one true ruler of this. Imu's laughter continued unabated, a chilling reminder of the unparalleled power that lay within the confines of the castle. Despite the urgency of the situation, no one dared disturb the ruler's reverie. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Imu's laughter subsided, and the oppressive atmosphere began to ease. With a sense of trepidation, the elders watched as Imu emerged from the garden, every step exuding an aura of absolute authority and supremacy. With graceful movements, Imu made their way to the vacant throne, a symbol of dominion over the world itself. As Imu seated themselves upon the throne, a palpable silence descended upon the chamber, the air thick with anticipation. All eyes were fixed on the supreme ruler, awaiting their command. I stood there, reborn in the baptism of lightning, feeling the surge of unlimited potential coursing through every fiber of my being. Previously, I had been considered a genius, but now, under the influence of this unparalleled power, I transcended mere genius. My observation haki reached new heights, delving into realms previously uncharted. Even my swordsmanship experienced a breakthrough, with each strike infused with the crackling energy of the storm. As I stepped back onto the shore, the sky above darkened with the dance of countless lightning bolts, their thunderous roars echoing like the primal cries of ancient beasts. Isho, standing nearby, strained to withstand the overwhelming pressure emanating from my transformed presence. Though formidable in his own right, he had yet to reach the pinnacle of Admiral-level strength. Nevertheless, I saw potential in him. His current strength was akin to that of a pseudo-admiral, like Katakuri at his peak in the canon. Despite our differing ideologies, I resolved to nurture Isho's strength if he chose to follow me and my family, preparing him to face even the mightiest of adversaries, perhaps even the Yonko themselves. My physical form had undergone a radical metamorphosis, and I felt that I now possessed a physique that rivaled even that of the legendary Kaido with his mythical dragon fruit. Maybe in the future I will completely surpass everyone due to the continued tempering of my body. With every passing moment, my body continued to temper itself, growing stronger with each surge of lightning coursing through my veins. As I retrieved the crucifix from around my neck, its blade fashioned from sea stone, I felt a sense of invincibility wash over me. Although I felt weakness rush out as I plunged the blade into my palm, I held on, not wanting to give up. Even the dreaded weakness of sea stone seemed inconsequential in the face of my newfound power. For Isho, my transformation elicited a mixture of disbelief and astonishment. Initially, he assumed madness had seized me, unaware of my intention to consume a devil fruit in the heart of the tiny little land mass within the sea itself. As a fellow devil fruit user, he understood all too well the vulnerability that came with being a landlubber. Yet, here before him stood someone who was trying to defy fate itself. Ross, even with a little sea stone blade through his palm, was trying to invoke his fruit powers, and despite the strain on his body, it was as if the kid was trying to defy the very weakness that plagued all devil fruit users. Though his curiosity tempted him to pry into my secrets and what exactly I was trying to accomplish with the sea stone, Isho recognized the immense power I wielded, sensing that, if provoked, I could effortlessly extinguish his life, despite being half his age. Ross, how? How is this possible? Isho's disbelief was palpable, his voice tinged with astonishment. He struggled to comprehend the miracle unfolding before him, wondering if he had erred in blinding himself to the world's wonders. Perhaps fate itself had conspired to conceal this momentous event from all but him, shielding him from the overwhelming pressure of Ross's conqueror's haki. Normally, any devil fruit user would completely become powerless in the presence of sea stone, but Ross was fighting back, and even though his face was pale, Isho could say for sure that this was unprecedented. Chapter 71. Choosing to remain silent, I focused on the gathering storm above, the clouds swirling with increasing ferocity as lightning crackled ominously as if ready to devour anyone in its path. Though I was only beginning to harness the power of the lightning logia, I felt an uncanny sense of harmony with the fruit, as if it willingly submitted to my will. While mastering its full potential would undoubtedly require years of practice, I encountered no resistance from the fruit itself. Sensing the impending danger, Isho reached for his sword instinctively, his senses on high alert. Ross-kun, what are you doing? His voice betrayed a mixture of concern and apprehension, realizing that whatever I had planned was not to be taken lightly. He feared that his own actions might have inadvertently contributed to the birth of an unprecedented threat. Isho-san, I ask that you do not interfere, I implored, my tone grave and resolute. I have inherited my family's will, like you said, I need to follow what my heart truly desires, and though I am unbound by any shackles, I must fulfill the first wish that we brothers swore on this very island, that still remains unfulfilled. We once vowed to exact vengeance upon those who tormented us in our darkest hour, and I intend to honor that vow. Please, step aside. My words hung heavy in the air, laden with the weight of solemn purpose. This was to be the ultimate tribute to my family members who fell, a final farewell gift in the form of retribution. These people were the same ones who relished in tormenting us when we were down. If not for Doffy back then, my journey would have ended as I came into this world. This blood would mark the beginning of our family's new journey, a cathartic closure to the pain and suffering we endured. Yet, even as I prepared to enact my vengeance, Isho, bound by his own principles, could not stand idly by and watch indiscriminate violence unfold. With resolve in his heart, he unsheathed his sword, ready to intervene if necessary. Ros-kun, listen to me. They are innocent people. However, before Isho could continue, my laughter cut through the air like a sharp blade, with lightning surging around me. Unlike Enel from Canon, my lightning was completely pitch black, imbued with something more than mere electricity. Innocent? Isho-san, I respect you, and I owe you my life for saving me back then. So, even though I don't have to justify myself, let me tell you what these people, whom you call innocents, did to me and my family. Although I had absolute confidence in killing all these people, even if Isho intervened, I didn't want things to sour between us because of a misunderstanding. However, if Isho chooses not to follow me and my family, then so be it. I could endure having a kind man by our side, but I would never tolerate a hypocrite in my family. This was a cruel world, and those who were naive to its true workings had no place beside me or my family. So, with a few brief statements, I explained exactly what had transpired during my childhood and why Doflamingo had vowed to kill them all. Even Isho's resolve faltered a bit as he understood that I wasn't lying. He felt conflicted, but he still stood opposite me, clinging to his principles and wanting me to forgive them for his sake. The concept of innocence holds no significance in this cruel world, Isho-san, I asserted, my voice tinged with resolve. Whether young or old, man or woman, out in the open seas, it all boils down to strength and weakness. And for the weak, they don't even have the luxury of expressing their emotions. This is a debt I owe to my brother. With determination coursing through my veins, I drew Sandai Kaiditsu, channeling both lightning and haki through the blade. However, despite being a black blade currently, Kaiditsu originally was a low-grade weapon when compared to true apex weapons, so it groaned under the sheer strength and pressure. I instinctively knew that my strength had surpassed what the third-generation Kaiditsu could bear. I might soon need a new blade. I doubted that even the famed 21 great-grade blades might suffice me when I reached the apex. I should find myself a supreme-grade blade. However, for now, Kaiditsu should suffice. Isho knew that, with us both standing on opposite sides, conflict was inevitable, so he wanted to gamble. Although he doubted whether he could truly stop me, he wanted to try. Isho was someone who trusted in fate, so he wanted to gamble everything for this one chance. Ros-kun, for my sake, how about we make a bet? Let's fight each other with all our might. If I win, I want you to give up on killing the people on this island. If you win, you can go ahead and do as you will. Isho remarked, his blade firmly gripped in his hand. Isho-san, you jest. Even if we were to gamble, the stakes should be equal. If you win, you save the lives of all these people. If I win, I simply don't get anything. I have already resolved to kill these people, and it's not like I need your permission. I countered. This was a God-given chance to have Isho join me, and the man himself was proposing the bet. I knew for a fact that Isho was a man of his word and wouldn't back out later. So, what do you propose, Ros-kun? Except for my life, I don't think that I have anything worthy of me. So, if it is my life that you want as the victor, you can have it. Isho was already resolved to fight to the end. Although he wasn't there when things truly happened back then, he was sure that there must be innocents on this island who had no connection to the torment that Ross and his family went through. So, he had to fight for their sake. Isho-san, do you think that I am so ungrateful as to ask for your life even after all you? No, I want something much more precious, your loyalty, Isho-san. If I win, I want you to join my family and truly follow me with all your heart. I commented. This was my one true shot at gaining Isho's true allegiance. I was not exactly sure what kind of decisions I might make in the future, but I was sure that there were going to be a few littered with countless bodies. At that time, I did not want Isho to have a change of heart. After contemplating the bet I proposed, Isho finally gave a nod. Very well then, Roz-kun. So be it. You have my word. However, let's take this fight to a nearby island. With that, he jumped onto a small boulder nearby, which he manipulated with his gravity to move towards the uninhabited island. My new lightning powers gave me the ability to traverse through the air unimpeded, but I chose to move like a flicker of lightning grazing the sea surface. After making sure that Lucci and Gladius were safe, I knew no other devil fruit user would truly attempt something like this. For me, the sea was not a barrier that could stop me. For a man like me who relished the thrill of battle, the last 3 months were torture. Back during Marineford, Admiral Aanya was too much for me to handle, but the current me was different. I instinctively felt that I had already breached the level of admirals. A 15-year-old with admiral level power now, this might be a first in this world. But if I truly wanted to achieve my dreams, this was not enough. I needed more. I needed to be strong enough to even beat Imu, who had ruled this world for over 8 centuries. Isho and I stood facing each other. The deserted island was quite large, but due to its rocky terrain, it was not feasible for human habitation. Isho did not stand on ceremony and directly launched an attack, signaling the start of the battle. Gravity Blade. Isho started sending out a high-gravity stream, trying to pin me down. However, with my future sight enhanced to unprecedented levels, it all seemed too slow. Although I could easily dodge the attack with my current speed, I chose to take the attack head-on. Isho's gravity fruit might be a great way to train my family in the future. Even I could use his gravity powers to push myself beyond the limit. As I was making plans for the future using the gravity fruit's power, Isho's words resonated. Roz-kun, I hope you don't underestimate me. Although I may not look like it, I am strong enough to hold my own against you, he said, increasing the pressure of gravity with his previous attack. It's you who's underestimating me, Isho-san. Maybe if I were the same me as 3 months ago, you could have been my match. But now. With a smirk, I unleashed Kaititsu, clad with both lightning and armament haki. Lightning Tiger. With an upward slash, despite the heavy gravity, a flying slash manifested itself, taking the form of a massive dark tiger made of lightning, charging towards Isho, who was trying to keep me pinned down. Detecting the incoming threat, Isho quickly swung his blade horizontally while clad in armament haki. He even used his gravity powers to try to pin the incoming lightning tiger, but the lightning beast charged ahead unimpeded. Isho had to defensively hold his blade in front of him as the flying slash pushed him back, despite his efforts to hold himself steady. The lightning beast completely engulfed Isho, electrocuting him. If he hadn't been clad in haki, he would have been burned to a crisp. Isho quickly understood that the fruit Ross had consumed must be the feared devil fruit lost in legends. Earlier, when Ross emerged from the sea, Isho believed he might have consumed some kind of mythical Zoan devil fruit that could alter the weather. But now he understood the kid hadn't consumed a Zoan fruit but the rumored strongest Logia. After being pushed back for a dozen meters, Isho steadied himself. His yukata was already damaged from the simple attack by Ross. He knew half measures were not going to help, so he ripped out the purple cloak and threw it aside. The air was heavy with anticipation as Isho and I stood facing each other, the battle shifting gears as we prepared for the clash that would determine the fate of all the lives on the island. 3 months of anticipation and battle deprivation had led to this moment, and I could feel the weight of expectation bearing down on me. This was my chance to unleash myself completely and show the world the true extent of my power. With a swift movement, Isho launched himself forward, his blade flashing in the sunlight as he closed the distance between us in the blink of an eye. I met his charge head-on, my own sword singing as it sliced through the air with deadly precision. Our blades met with a resounding clang, sending sparks flying in all directions as the force of our clash reverberated through the surrounding landscape. But Isho was not content to simply exchange blows. With a roar of determination, he unleashed his signature technique Raging Tiger. The attack generated an immense level of gravitational force around Isho, pushing out horizontally and knocking away anything in its path. Rocks, boulders, trees, nothing could withstand the sheer power of his assault as the landscape around us was reduced to rubble. Undeterred by the destruction unfolding around us, I pushed forward, my own lightning-infused attacks crackling with energy as they clashed against Isho's gravity-enhanced strikes. With each strike, I poured more of my strength and willpower into my attacks, refusing to be intimidated by the overwhelming power of my opponent. Dark thunder descent. I roared, unleashing a torrent of lightning-infused slashes that cut through Isho's gravity shockwaves and other flying slashes with ease. The sheer force of my attack overwhelmed Isho's defenses, leaving him momentarily staggered as he struggled to regain his footing. Chapter 72. But Isho was not one to back down without a fight. With a surge of determination, he countered with his own formidable techniques, channeling his gravity powers to create miniature gravity pools that threatened to swallow me whole. Yet I refused to be intimidated, meeting his attacks head-on with a surge of armament haki that bolstered my defenses and allowed me to push forward with renewed vigor. As the battle raged on, the surroundings bore witness to the intensity of our conflict. Trees were uprooted from the ground, their branches splintering like matchsticks under the force of our blows. Rocks shattered into rubble, and the very air crackled with electricity as our swords clashed with the fury of a raging storm. But amidst the chaos, there was a kind of beauty to our battle, a primal elegance that transcended the violence. Each movement was a dance, a symphony of motion and power that captivated all who beheld it. The clash of our blades was like music to my ears, a melody of steel and lightning that echoed across the island. As the battle raged on, I knew that I needed to up my level of attack. With a surge of energy, I unleashed another lightning technique, Lightning Dragon. With a roar that shook the heavens, I channeled all of my power into Sandai Kaiditsu, unleashing a massive bolt of dark lightning energy that took the form of a ferocious black dragon descending from the heavens. The lightning dragon charged forward with unstoppable force, its claws crackling with electricity as it bore down on Isho with terrifying speed. But he was not one to go down without a fight. With a surge of willpower, he raised his blade in a desperate bid to defend himself, channeling his gravity powers to create a barrier of intense gravitational force. Ascending heavens! Isho bellowed, summoning a massive pillar of earth from the ground under his gravitational control and morphing it into the form of an earthen dragon. The two dragons roared in defiance, black lightning clashing against ascending earth as the battlefield erupted in chaos. As the clash between the lightning dragon and Isho's earthen creation reached its peak, the island seemed to tremble beneath the weight of our power. Cracks formed in the ground, fissures splitting open like gaping wounds as the very earth rebelled against the force of our battle. The air crackled with energy, charged with the raw power of our conflicting abilities. But it was not enough. With a primal roar, I poured my strength and determination into the lightning dragon, infusing it with my armament haki, and more black lightning. The beast crashed into Isho's earthen dragon and barrier with the force of a tidal wave, shattering them both like glass and engulfing him in a maelstrom of crackling energy. The impact was like a thunderclap, shaking the very foundations of the island as the lightning dragon collided with Isho's defenses. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as the two colossal forces clashed, and the air filled with the sound of crackling energy and the smell of ozone. And then, with a deafening roar, the lightning dragon broke through, shattering Isho's final defenses like glass and engulfing him in a maelstrom of crackling energy. In the midst of the chaos, I could feel my strength growing at an unprecedented rate. The strain of maintaining such a powerful technique was taking its toll on my body, reforging my physique with lightning energy with each passing moment. But I refused to give in with just a small improvement. With a surge of determination, I pushed forward, pouring more of my strength into the lightning dragon, willing it to overcome Isho's last defenses and emerge victorious. For his part, Isho fought with a ferocity that was unmatched. Despite the overwhelming odds against him, he refused to back down, channeling his gravity powers to their absolute limit in a desperate bid to turn the tide of battle. But even as he fought, I could see the strain etched into his features and the weariness in his eyes, betraying the toll that our clash was taking on him. As our battle raged on, just a dozen miles away from the island, the unprecedented damage we caused sent shockwaves through the surrounding seas. This level of conflict was more akin to the New World, where battles of such magnitude were not uncommon. On a marine scout ship, the crew watched in awe as the sky darkened with thunderclouds and the sea churned with turmoil. "Captain, what exactly is happening over there?" A marine soldier couldn't help but ask, his voice tinged with concern as he watched the chaos unfolding in the distance. The captain, his brow furrowed with worry, knew that they needed to report to headquarters immediately. "We need to report this to HQ at once," he exclaimed, his voice urgent as he wiped sweat from his brow. "Quickly, get me a line to headquarters." The captain, a seasoned veteran who had graduated from the elite Marine Academy, understood the gravity of the situation. Even from their current distance, it was clear that the battle raging on the island was of immense scale and power. He dared not move the ship any closer, fearing for the safety of his crew. "Why is that monster Shiki here in the North Blue? Is this where he is hiding after his loss with Roger?" The captain muttered to himself, his eyes fixed on the distant skyline, where large land masses floated in the air, surrounded by flashes of lightning. It was a sight that filled him with dread, knowing that someone of Shiki's caliber was wreaking havoc so close to home. The entire sky was littered with lightning, which tore through these massive land masses, blasting them to smithereens. "Captain, HQ is on the line," a marine soldier announced, handing the captain a transponder snail. Another soldier was already using another snail to capture images of the ongoing events on the island, their faces tense with apprehension. "Sir, it's Golden Lion Shiki," the captain reported, his voice tense with urgency. "He's here in the North Blue, engaged in battle with an unknown opponent who seems to match his strength." The news sent shockwaves through headquarters, where officials scrambled to assess the situation. The mere mention of Shiki's name struck fear into the hearts of those who understood the threat he posed. "How certain are you that it's Shiki?" a rear admiral from HQ questioned, his voice strained with concern. "Have you visually confirmed his identity?" "No, sir," the captain admitted, frustration evident in his tone. "The battle on the island is too chaotic. We're a dozen miles away, there's no way to visually confirm Shiki's presence. But with the entire island floating in the sky, who else could it be?" Realizing the gravity of the situation, the captain quickly transmitted the images they had captured to headquarters, hoping to provide irrefutable proof of Shiki's presence in the North Blue. As the images flickered across the screen, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Shiki was here, and he was unleashing chaos unlike anything the Marines had ever seen before. Back on the island, Isho struggled to maintain his stance as exhaustion weighed heavily on him. The battle had raged on for nearly an hour now, and every moment seemed to drain him of more strength. Leaning heavily on his blade's sheath for support, Isho fought to catch his breath, his chest heaving with exertion. Ross was proving to be a formidable opponent, his mastery of the Black Lightning technique overwhelming even Isho's most skilled defenses. Despite his best efforts, Isho found himself unable to keep up with the relentless assault, his haki slowly being devoured by the insidious lightning power of the opponent coursing through his veins. In the heat of battle, Isho couldn't help but reflect on his own limitations. He had always believed himself to be strong and a master of his craft. But facing Ross had shown him just how much he lacked. If Ross had truly wanted to kill him, Isho knew he would have been struck down without hesitation. Yet still, he couldn't bring himself to surrender. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to give up, to admit defeat, and to spare himself further torment. But to do so would mean abandoning all those lives to Ross's mercy, and Isho could not allow that to happen. Despite the charred flesh of his left hand, the result of countless lightning strikes, Isho remained resolute, his determination unwavering as he prepared to face whatever came next. "Isho-san, you should give up. I don't want to end up accidentally killing you. Even I don't have a proper estimate of exactly how strong I have grown," I said solemnly, my voice tinged with concern. Yes, I wanted to defeat Isho, but I didn't want the man dead. He was already on his last leg, and my restraint with my lightning power was the only reason Isho was still standing. If it were before the past 3 months, Isho might have triumphed over me. Even now, if he pushed himself, Isho could burst with the strength of an admiral for a few moments, but that was not enough to challenge the current me. Ha ha ha, Ross-kun, as a man, how can I go back on my word and give up? I have vowed to defend the innocents on that island, and if I have to die for that cause, then so be it, Isho remarked, his voice resolute as he steadied himself once more. He had already attempted to subdue me with his overwhelming gravity, but nothing worked. He clearly understood that I still had more cards up my sleeve. Hell's Journey! The blind man roared, pulling out his blade and ray-sheathing it despite the pain coursing through his body due to the residual lightning. A massive gravity field descended on me as he sheathed his sword, sending me down into a massive crater. However, Isho knew this was not enough to hold me down, so he immediately launched the next attack, mustering every last ounce of energy he could muster. Final Sonata! Isho screamed, extending his observation haki to the extreme. Blood seeped out of his mouth, ears, nose, and even through his blind eyes. I stood in awe at the true extent of a human's willpower. My observation haki had already picked up on what Isho was planning to achieve, and within moments, a massive meteorite, whose radius spanned for miles, appeared in the sky. The meteor was so large that it could easily engulf the massive island that we were fighting on. Isho's plan was clear, he wanted to bury us both alive beneath the massive meteor. However, the true scale and terror of the descending meteor were being experienced by the Marines on the scout ship. The captain was already screaming at his team to quickly leave the area, as a meteor of this size was sure to create a massive tsunami that could affect hundreds of miles. Panic ensued as the crew scrambled to retreat to safety, their eyes wide with fear at the impending disaster. As I gazed upon the descending, burning meteor, determination burned within me like the flames of a raging inferno. I gripped Kaitsu tightly within its sheath, infusing it with armament haki and the crackling energy of black lightning. For the first time since the start of the battle, my conqueror's haki surged forth like an unstoppable storm, radiating outward with irresistible force. My entire being transformed into a manifestation of black and golden lightning as I prepared to face the oncoming threat. With a primal roar, I crouched low, my form poised like a beast ready to pounce. As my momentum reached its apex, I shot towards the descending meteor with unparalleled speed and power. From the perspective of the Marines on the scout ship, a massive pillar of golden and black lightning ascended from the entire island towards the incoming meteor, a sight that struck fear into their hearts. Just as I neared the descending meteor, I unsheathed my blade with a swift motion, assuming a sword draw stance. Lightning Nova! I thundered, my voice echoing through the heavens as my blade cleaved through the massive meteor. Black lightning engulfed the entire sky, shrouding it in darkness despite the noonday sun. The meteor crumbled beneath the onslaught of lightning, shattered into a million pieces that scattered across the sky like stars. Isho, who stood in awe at the sheer display of power, could no longer hold himself conscious and blacked out. The last attack was meant as a suicidal maneuver to take down both himself and me, a testament to his unwavering resolve. He realized in that moment that he had truly lost, defeated by the overwhelming might of my lightning powers. Chapter 73. As the Marine scout ship finally caught a glimpse of me high in the air, I appeared as the embodiment of lightning itself. That's the lightning Logia! The captain roared in disbelief, realizing the true extent of the revelation. Their transponder snails had already been knocked out by my power, leaving them helpless to communicate with headquarters. Just as the captain understood the gravity of the situation, a massive pillar of lightning descended upon the Marine scout ship, obliterating it from existence. Any vessel that dared to pry into the events unfolding on the island met a similar fate, as I unleashed my monstrous range of destruction upon them. As the dust settled and the echoes of our battle faded into the distance, I stood victorious amidst the wreckage of our clash. The once mighty island lay in ruins, its landscape devastated by the ferocity of our battle. With a heavy heart, I approached Isho's unconscious form, feeling a sense of respect for his bravery and determination. And with that, I turned towards the island, where the fate of its inhabitants awaited my judgment. What followed was carnage as I ensured that Daffy's promise made on this island was kept, the dancing dark clouds in the sky bearing witness to the chaos that ensued. I had finally come to truly embody my true character. As I set foot upon the island's soil, a palpable sense of dread permeated the atmosphere, mingling with the ominous shadows cast by the dancing dark lightning clouds overhead. With every step, the ground trembled beneath my feet, a harbinger of the carnage that was about to unfold. With a single swing of Sandai Kaititsu, arcs of lightning danced along its blade, illuminating the darkness with an eerie glow. The first strike was like a bolt from the heavens, cleaving through flesh and bone with merciless precision. Blood sprayed in crimson arcs as screams echoed through the night, the air thick with the sickening scent of iron. I moved with relentless efficiency, my movements a blur of death as I cut down anyone who dared to stand in my path. With each strike, I could feel the raw power coursing through me, fueling my rampage with an insatiable hunger for destruction. The streets ran red with blood as I carved a path of devastation through the heart of the island, leaving naught but death and despair in my wake. The cries of the innocent mingled with the crackle of thunder, a symphony of chaos that echoed across the island. But even amidst the slaughter, a part of me recoiled at the horror of what I had become. The screams of the dying haunted my every step, a grim reminder of the price of vengeance. Yet, I pushed onward, driven by a singular purpose to fulfill the promise I had made to my brother, no matter the cost. As dawn broke upon the ravaged landscape, I stood amidst the ruins of the island, a lone figure bathed in the pale light of the rising sun. The once vibrant streets lay silent and desolate, a testament to the devastation wrought by my hand. It had been 2 days since my clash with Isho, and he had yet to awaken. The man must have truly pushed himself beyond his limits. Despite my recent surge in strength, which had brought me to the brink of Admiral-level power, it had proven too much for Isho to handle in his current state. Our little caravel now carried 5 people, including myself and what remained of the Donquixote family. Gila had already regained consciousness, but she was in no condition to move about. Therefore, it fell to Lucci and Gladius to care for the two wounded on board. However, my main concern now lay in discovering what had happened to Doffy and his whereabouts. I couldn't afford to waste even a second. For all I knew, Doffy might have been suffering for these past 3 months. Only after speaking to Treble did I confirm that Doflamingo was last seen surrounded by beast pirates and world government agents. It wasn't as though I hadn't attempted to gather information through other avenues. Most of what I had found were mere rumors, and even some of the Cypher Paul agents I had captured could offer nothing more than hearsay about an event that occurred in Mary Gosa around the time I was ambushed by Aanya. With all the rumors pointing to Mary Gosa and with time running out, I decided to take the gamble. The world still believed me to be dead, and I intended to use this to my advantage. With that in mind, I steered the caravel in the direction of North Blue Red Port. While I wasn't an expert in navigation, I had a decent knowledge of navigation from my time as a marine to navigate the seas of North Blue. Meanwhile, news of the massacre on the North Blue Island had spread far and wide. However, all the blame fell on the head of Golden Lion Shiki. I paid little heed to the accusations, as my actions were solely aimed at fulfilling Doflamingo's promise. Soon enough, I would hunt down every single person involved in bringing down the Donquixote family. Just as I pondered how effectively to infiltrate Mary Gosa, Lucci came running. I had already begun training both him and Gladius, and I had to admit that Doflamingo had done an excellent job of laying a strong foundation for them, particularly Lucci, whose talent was apparent. "Ross, the blind man is awake. He wants to talk to you," Lucci said, his cheerful demeanor evident. It seemed his time with the Donquixote family had treated him well. I ensured the weather was steady before making my way to the small cabin where Isho and Gila lay. Gladius was already seated by Gila's side, diligently tending to her. "How long have I been out? And you spared my life even after I tried to bury us both in the sea," Isho said, lowering his head in guilt as he detected me entering the cabin. "It's all right, Isho-san. You were only following your beliefs. I won't hold it against you. And now that you've lost, I hope you remember our wager," I replied with a soft smile. I knew I had found a valuable addition to the Donquixote family in Isho. While his loyalty was guaranteed, I also resolved to keep a watchful eye on him. I couldn't afford to let him be swayed by his morals in the future. "I do, Ross-kun. I am a man of my word. I will follow you. But I would like to know something, did you kill everyone on the island?" Isho tightened his fist, now considering their deaths his fault as he was not strong enough to defend the innocents. Despite his current condition, Isho was still thinking about the people on the island. I chose to remain silent because anything I said at this point would only make things harder for Isho to be part of our family. My silence was all the answer Isho needed regarding the fate of the people on the island. "Ross-kun, aren't you afraid that I would betray you in the future? Our ideals completely clash. Are you still confident that I would be loyal until the end?" Isho's conflicted feelings were evident. On one side was his promise to follow me, and on the other side were his morals that he stuck onto. "That is why I am asking you this one last time, Isho-san. If you feel you are not meant to be a part of my family, you can leave, and I will consider our debts to each other repaid in full. But if you choose to join my family, then you know what it entails. Make no mistake, our future will be written with the blood of thousands, and I am sure many a things we might do might not be in line with your ideals." My words hung heavy in the air. I couldn't leave a powerful man like Isho in my family if his allegiance was not guaranteed. In such a case, it was better to part ways now. I couldn't afford a Marcus situation occur again. Someday, when I lay my hands on that bastard, I would make him suffer. "Don't worry, Isho-san. I am not that ungrateful to force you against your wishes. Go ahead and take your time and think about it, and let me know about your decision when we reach our destination, and whatever you decide to do, I'll respect your decision. But I hope you are not naive enough to believe that just because they call themselves civilians in this world, they are innocent. Human cruelty knows no bounds, the devil lurks deep inside every soul," I remarked, checking Isho's injuries to ensure he did not sustain any lasting harm. Only his left arm seemed heavily damaged, but I was sure he would soon recover. I left the cabin, leaving the man with his decision. In the center of the holy land of Mary Gosa, on the central square, stood a grim testament to suffering and defiance. For the past 3 months, a large crucifix has been erected, its imposing presence visible from nearly every corner of the Holy Land. Upon it hung the shriveled and broken form of Donquixote Doflamingo, his once proud and formidable figure reduced to a pitiful state. Doflamingo's condition was beyond pathetic. His once vibrant and charismatic demeanor had been replaced by a gaunt and emaciated shell of a man. His clothing, once regal and imposing, now hung in tatters around his frail frame. Deep bruises and lacerations covered his body, evidence of the relentless torment he had endured. His once fiery gaze was now hollow and vacant, a mere shadow of its former intensity. For 3 long months, Doflamingo had been subjected to unimaginable suffering. Originally slated for permanent incarceration by the elders because Doflamingo was the current user of the flame logia and they didn't want the fruit recirculating back into the world after he was killed, however, his fate took a twisted turn when Doffy's threat of his brother's vengeance amused the elders, which prolonged Doflamingo's agony. And with requests for vengeance from the Donquixote family in Mary Gosa, instead of a swift death or eternal suffering in Impel Down, he was made to endure each agonizing day as the entire Holy Land watched. Despite the repeated attempts to break his spirit by informing him of his brother's supposed demise and presenting him with a gruesome reminder, a chunk of what was claimed to be his brother's heart, Doflamingo refused to yield. He clung to life with a tenacity that defied all reason, driven by the belief that his brother would come for him. Starved and tormented daily, Doflamingo's resilience was nothing short of miraculous. While any normal person would have succumbed to despair within the first week, Doflamingo remained steadfast. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, yet the flicker of life in his eyes never wavered, a testament to his unyielding willpower. As the days dragged on and Doflamingo's suffering continued unabated, whispers of his resilience and defiance spread throughout the Holy Land of Mary Gosa. Despite his broken state, there was a strange aura of strength that seemed to emanate from him, a silent defiance that captured the attention of all who passed by. Those who witnessed his ordeal couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe and horror at his unwavering determination. Some whispered that he was possessed by a devil's spirit, while others believed he was simply mad. Yet, regardless of the speculation, none could deny the sheer willpower that kept him clinging to life. Meanwhile, within the confines of his own mind, Doflamingo fought a battle of his own. Memories of his past, both triumphant and tragic, flooded his thoughts, providing him with moments of solace amidst the torment. He recalled his rise to power, the glory of his reign as a budding rookie in the New World, and the fierce loyalty of his subordinates. But alongside these memories lurked darker shadows: the betrayal of his family, the loss of his freedom, and the relentless pursuit of vengeance. With each passing moment, Doffy's conqueror Haki was being tempered without his own knowledge, and even his flames were undergoing a transformation. Yet, amidst the chaos of his mind, one thought burned brighter than all the rest: the promise he had made to his younger brother, Ross. Doflamingo's unwavering belief that Ross would come for him was the only thing that kept him going, a beacon of hope in the darkness of his despair. Chapter 74. And so, day after day, Doflamingo endured. His body weakened, his spirit battered, but his resolve never faltered. He knew it in his gut that as long as he held on, there was still a chance for redemption for himself, for his brother, and for the legacy of the Donquixote family. And so, with each passing moment, he clung to life with all the strength he could muster, determined to survive against all odds. Just as Doffy was still holding on, he could faintly hear footsteps approaching him. Due to his weakened state, even his senses were failing him, but he was sure that it was one of those bastards who came to torment him every single day. Doflamingo's eyes flickered with a glimmer of defiance, despite his weakened state. Ha ha ha, if it isn't the brat who tried to defy and tarnish the name of the Donquixote family, you sure are pathetic. Look at you now. At least if you had become a slave, you might not have suffered so, sneered an elderly man from the Donquixote family. He was the same man who had tried to auction Doffy and Ross, and he had always held a grudge against the two kids escaping his grasp back then. Internally, he felt a sense of bliss looking at the tattered form of Doffy, an almost withered mess of a heart that lay beneath the crucifix, which had already turned to dust. As the elderly man's cruel words echoed through the square, a sense of vindictive satisfaction washed over him. For years, he had harbored resentment towards Doflamingo and his younger brother, Ross, for tarnishing his name due to the failed auction and escaping his grasp. Now, seeing Doflamingo reduced to such a pitiful state, he relished the opportunity to revel in his torment. You thought you were above us all, didn't you? The man taunted, his voice dripping with scorn. You thought you could defy us forever with that stupid stunt you pulled last time, but look at you now, broken, defeated, and utterly worthless. The last time, the two kids were let go for some odd reason, and it was an order from the elders, so no one could defy it back then. Doffy remained calm despite his weakened state and the monk's repeated mockery. You may gloat now, but my time will come, he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. My brother will come for me, and when he does, you will all pay for your insolence." The elderly man laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the square. "Your brother? Ha! He's probably dead by now, just like you soon will be. No one is coming to save you, brat. You are alone, and you will die alone." But even as the man spoke, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. He had heard confirmation of Ross's supposed demise, but something about the conviction in Doflamingo's voice gave him pause. Could it be possible that the other kid was still alive and that he would indeed come to rescue his brother? Shaking off the thought, the man turned away from Doflamingo's broken form, his heart hardened with resentment and bitterness. He had waited too long for this moment of triumph to let doubts cloud his mind now. Meanwhile, Doflamingo clung to the faint hope that Ross would come for him, his spirit unbroken despite the cruelty of his captors. For as long as he drew breath, he would hold on to the belief that his brother would save him from this living nightmare, no matter the odds stacked against them. The old man gestured for his guard to pass the spear, and the soldier quickly obliged. This had become routine after the second month, as the regular tormentors lost interest. However, other celestial dragons, who had taken this as a sport, would come to torment Doflamingo regularly. Now, there was even an ongoing bet amongst the celestial dragons about how long Doflamingo would last. The old man's sinister grin widened as he drove the spear deep into Doflamingo's shoulder, relishing the sight of his victim's stoic endurance. But Doflamingo refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction, gritting his teeth against the searing pain coursing through his body. With a cruel chuckle, the old man withdrew the spear and held it aloft, the moonlight glinting off its polished surface. "You're nothing but a pathetic worm, little brat," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "A mere shadow of a true descendant of gods. Do you honestly believe anyone would shed a tear for you if I ended your miserable existence right here and now?" Doflamingo's eyes narrowed with defiant resolve, his gaze unwavering despite the agony radiating from his wounded shoulder. The old man's laughter echoed through the square, a hollow sound filled with malice and derision. "Your delusions of grandeur will be your downfall, Doflamingo," he spat, his grip tightening on the spear as he aimed for Doflamingo's heart. "But fear not, I will put an end to your suffering once and for all." With a savage thrust, the old man lunged forward, the spear aimed directly at Doflamingo's chest. But even as the metal tip closed in on its target, Doflamingo's eyes burned with an unyielding resolve, his spirit unbroken despite the Grim Reaper's calling. Just as the spear was about to pierce Doflamingo's heart, a flash of black lightning flickered, leaving everyone bewildered. Even the soldiers and government agents surrounding the old man from the Donquixote family had no idea what had just occurred. Clang! The sound of metal hitting the ground drew everyone's attention. However, Doflamingo, who was about to face death, held a wide smirk on his face. Suddenly, the sea stone shackles that bound Doffy hit the ground, all within a split second, leaving the soldiers with no time to react. "You made me wait, little brother." Despite his pathetic condition, Doflamingo's majestic aura soared into the sky. Within the next few moments, I moved with unparalleled speed, cutting down all the soldiers surrounding the scene, leaving only the celestial dragon alive. My eyes filled with rage as I understood my brother's condition. He was a mere husk, his life clinging to him only through sheer will. With a single glance, I saw more than 100 wounds on his body, each more severe than the last. He was firmly locked onto the crucifix with sea stone shackles and chains to ensure he couldn't use his Logia powers. Anger clouded my mind entirely, and I wanted nothing more than to burn down the entire Holy Land and kill them all. With a quick slash, clad with armament haki, I severed the remaining chains that bound Doflamingo and caught his frail body before it hit the ground. The old world noble was already planted on his arse, frozen by sheer terror. One moment, he was about to claim his prize, but the next instant, he was at the mercy of the two youths he had wanted to kill. Now, Doffy's earlier words resonated in his ears again. "Help me up, little brother." Doffy commanded, and I assisted him, knowing his frail body wouldn't support him. However, he pushed my hand aside after I helped him up and took a shaky step towards the now down celestial dragon, who was shivering in sheer terror. "I told you earlier, didn't I? That you would pay for your insolence. Even I didn't think that retribution would be so swift," Doffy chuckled as he extended his arms towards the celestial dragon. You little bastard! What are you trying to do? Get away from me, you dog! I will have you butchered!" the old man shouted. Meanwhile, I was already cutting down the soldiers who were in the square, rushing in to save the Tenryabito. "Revenge tastes so sweet," Doffy laughed maniacally. Despite the struggle of the old man, Doffy caught him by the neck. With the sea stone shackles no longer restricting him, Doffy unleashed his flame powers, starting to burn the old man alive. He took it slow, cherishing every second of the blood-curdling screams from the celestial dragon as he was being roasted alive. Just a minute in, all that was left was a burned husk, completely charred. Doffy was completely exhausted, and he staggered and fell to the ground, not being able to hold himself upright. As I cut down the last soldier in the square, I realized that the commotion hadn't gone unnoticed. My observation haki detected multiple presences from various parts of Mary Gosa stirring, especially at the core of the Pangaea castle. My haki picked up some monstrous presences that I had no chance of fighting with my current strength. The sheer number of Admiral-level strengths and above within the Holy Land made me realize how naive I had been before. Just as I was contemplating whether I should clash with them, my mind was clouded with anger. But then Doflamingo's hoarse voice cut through like a voice of reason as he tried to gesture me from the ground with his now bony, feeble hands. Instinctively I flickered next to my brother and helped him up. "Not yet, little brother, not yet. The gap between us is too large, we stand no chance even with your current strength. Let's fall back for now. I am sure the head of this single dog would suffice for now," Doflamingo said, bending down with my support to rip out the charred head of the old man from the Donquixote family. Although I was raging on the inside, I knew that my first priority was my brother, and I couldn't risk doing anything foolish with so many powerhouses around. I had absolute superiority when it came to speed, so I decided to retreat first alongside Doffy. Crimson Serpent. Just as I was ready to retreat with my brother, I detected a blood serpent flying towards me, and I knew exactly who it was. I pulled out Kaiditsu with one smooth motion and sent out a flying slash of my own, Thunder Serpent. Aanya, who was rushing forward with ferocity, completely paused as a massive black lightning serpent, comparable to her own attack, manifested. Two serpents, one crimson and the other black, clashed midair, each trying to gain dominance over the other. I knew I had yet to reach Aganya's standard, but I was not completely helpless like last time. However, I did not want to be entangled in a fight with the peak Admiral-level powerhouse right in the midst of the Holy Land. Even as we clashed, I detected more and more strong presences approaching the central square. With one last defiant look in Aganya's direction, I flickered away from the Holy Land while carrying Doffy in my arms, who had already fainted. As I retreated away from the Holy Land, the entire place stirred as they realized a celestial dragon had just been killed. They mobilized in force, trying to capture me, but I had left a large gift for them. Just as they were about to depart, a massive thundercloud that had been floating in the night sky, which I had charged to the extreme, rained down on the red port. Massive lightning pillars descended like ferocious dragons, tearing through the side of the red line. I was sure that if I had directed such a massive attack towards the Holy Land itself, it would have been completely stopped. My lightning attack rampaged through the entirety of Redport, devastating it almost completely. The one advantage I had was my speed. Even if there were devil fruits that granted flying abilities, they were really rare, and the movement of lightning was not something most users could catch up to. Maybe only Borsellino and a few users who could directly increase their speed with their fruit powers could possibly outmatch me when it came to speed. Aanya, who stood at the top of the red line, watched the havoc the black pillars of lightning were causing on the red port below. My lightning tore through the lifts and ships that lay anchored, even the ships patrolling nearby were not spared. She immediately formed wings made out of blood and flew into the air to clash with the thunderstorm head-on. Crimson World. Aganya's voice bellowed through the skies as massive pillars of blood rose, clashing with the lightning that descended. But by the time she reacted, I was already far on the horizon, moving towards a small island a few hundred miles away, where the caravel was anchored. Chapter 75. The entire Mary Gosa descended into chaos as news of a celestial dragon being killed right in the heart of their power spread like wildfire. Aanya was immediately summoned back by the elders before she could pursue the one responsible for the chaos. The damage to Redport was inconsequential, but killing a celestial dragon at the heart of the Holy Land was a direct challenge to their authority. Aanya, are you absolutely sure it's the Lightning Logia and that the kid from the Donquixote family was the user? Elder Ethan Barron questioned her, with a slight worry etched on his face. Currently, Aanya stood in front of the elders with her head held low. She gave a sharp nod to confirm the elders' words. Originally, she was the one who had confirmed that Donquixote Rosinante had perished and had submitted half a heart to them in this same office. But now she stood before them, stating that the kid was very much alive and had managed to rescue his elder brother. To add insult to injury, Aanya had just confirmed that the kid had become the user of the legendary lightning logia, a fruit that they had been seeking for centuries. There were a few fruits that the world government did not want to fall into the hands of others, and the lightning logia was among the top, on par with the Gomu Gomu no Mi and the Op Op no Mi. Aanya, how dare you lie to us? Elder Warkuri roared as he bashed his fist down on the table. Although Aanya was a prospective god's knight, her status was still lower than that of the elders. You confirmed that the kid was killed back in Marineford, and now you say he came back, and, on top of that, he is the lightning logia user. How much more useless can you become? Elder Jew Peter added sarcastically. The news of Rosinante being the lightning logia user gave them a big headache. The elder brother was a flame logia user, and the younger one was a lightning logia, and he was personally trained by Garp. Now that they were out in the world, they did not know what kind of drastic action those kids would take. If the kids chose to spread the secrets of the world nobles, then the entire world would descend into chaos. There is no use crying over spilled milk. We need to think about countermeasures. Now that we are in open hostilities, I don't think they would look for a compromise. We will have to silence them somehow, Elder Nusjuro commented. But he did not hold any hope regarding the matter. If those kids chose to run, especially the younger one, what could they possibly do? They never expected such a twist. Maybe they should have tried nurturing the younger kid like they originally intended. Even the elders were currently in a dilemma, however, the main blame was now all shouldered by Aanya herself. Let me pursue them. Aanya started, wanting to take on the responsibility of capturing the Donquixote brothers herself. However, she was quickly interjected by the elder. Enough. Aanya, you have already done enough damage. You should just get back to Marineford and reflect on your mistakes. If we knew you would mess up we would have just sent someone from the Aegis, Elder Mars remarked. Although he knew it was entirely her fault for not confirming the kill and talking about it wasn't going to change anything, he couldn't help but berate her harshly, although she might become one of the future powerhouse of the world nobles. That did not mean that even in the future her status would equal to theirs. She will just remain a part of the inner circle beneath them. Anyone in Mary Giose who was privileged to know about Imusama formed the true circle of elites. Well, we must be more worried about how Imusama is going to react about this. We lost a member from the Donquixote family right in the heart of the Holy Land. Imusama must already know about the event because of all that commotion that kid caused down at Red Port, Elder Jagarsha, who had remained quite quiet all this while, commented. We should have just killed off that Donquixote kid instead of stringing him up for all these months. Aanya sighed in frustration. But then she realized she had blurted it out foolishly, as all the elders were staring at her as if she were a fool. When was it your turn to speak, Aanya? Are you questioning our decision to let that brat suffer? No, it was your incompetence that led to this folly, and we need to sort this mess you created ourselves, Elder Nusjuro commented while squarely placing all the blame on Aganya's shoulders. He knew moping about the things that happened was not going to help, and now they needed to do damage control. According to the elders, if Aanya had killed Rosinante back in Marineford then all this would not have happened, so all things happened because Aanya was incompetent as she couldn't even handle killing a mere brat. Aanya felt bitter at the way how these old relics were treating her. She was destined for greatness but these elders were now pinning all the blame on her. She clenched her fist in frustration. But she knew that with her status in the Holy Land she couldn't do much about it. Is there any way we can have a compromise with those brats? Elder Mars questioned, wanting to find a quick fix to the situation. Elder Jagarsha, who was holding a teacup in his hand and had been silent since the beginning of the meeting, extended his arm outward and dropped the porcelain cup, which shattered upon impact with the floor, attracting the attention of everyone in the room toward him. There is your compromise, he said, gesturing toward the broken teacup. We saw to that when we decided to deal with those kids and almost succeeded in killing them both. Elder Jagarsha tapped his staff hard on the floor and spoke solemnly, we will have an easier time drinking from that cup than trying to find a compromise with those kids, and the worst part is we don't even know where they are or what they are planning to do next. Let's mobilize the Cypher Paul Aegis to find those brats rather than handing the matter over to incompetent fools. Maybe we will be lucky, and the kids might decide to hide forever from us, Elder Jew Peter commented, to which Aanya scoffed, and the elder eyed her with a glare. No, I don't think those brats will forget it. They even challenged us when they were merely kids, but now they have been baptized by death. They will become dangerous. They will retaliate when they think they are strong enough. Mobilize the Marines as well, Elder Jagarsha commented and looked to Aanya, wanting her to take care of things on the Marine's end, to which she nodded. Let's release a wanted bounty order. Maybe a high enough bounty might encourage other parties, especially pirates, to take out those brats. After all, they have killed a world noble. We cannot let this matter slip, Elder Ethabaron commented, adding his idea. The discussion among the elders carried on into the night as they started making various plans for the potential backlash that they expected to come. Their biggest disadvantage was that the kids seemed to know most of the secrets the world government was hiding, so they needed to handle this matter delicately. Even when they were mere kids, it had taken years of planning to finally corner those brats completely, but fate seemed to play in their favor. So for now, they had to tread carefully. 2 days passed quickly, and the world government had launched all countermeasures. It had mobilized the Cypher Paul, government agents, the Marines, and even the underworld, which was looking for the Don Quixote brothers. It was as if the entire world was searching for these two, and the main reason for such a rush was the new bounty posters that were released. Don Quixote Doflamingo, dead or alive, 542,900,000 belly. Don Quixote Rosinante, dead or alive, 500,100,000 belly. The elders had completely suppressed the news of the world noble's death because only recently did a world noble die in Sabayati archipelago, and now a world noble was killed in the heart of Mary Goase. This was simply a slap on the face. However, if they had known that Ross was involved in the first kill as well, then his bounty would have shot up even further. This was the first time such unprecedented bounties were released. Doflamingo's bounty saw an abrupt increase of close to 300 million belly, and Ross's first bounty directly started at 500 million belly. Both the brothers being feared Logia-type users accounted for their notoriety, but the true reason was because they were involved in the death of a celestial dragon. Even the Marines were shaken by such high bounties that was directly released by the world government, but despite the shocking bounties, no one knew exactly what prompted the world government to release such bounties for the two youths whose family had been completely destroyed just a few months ago. Somewhere out in the New World, Garp was now laughing heartily as he held a bounty poster in his hand. This was the latest bounty poster urgently released under pressure from the world government. It was the bounty poster of his protégé, whom he believed had been dead for almost 3 months now. Although he had held on to hope every passing day, it had faded. Now he couldn't contain his joy at seeing Ross's bounty poster. Even the pirates who were shackled on Garp's ship did not utter a word so as not to disturb the marine hero from his moment of joy. On another island in the New World, a young swordsman stood like a lone dragon amongst the bodies of hundreds of marines littered around him. The young man had a sharp gaze that could send shivers down his enemies' spines. But now, the same man had a blossoming smile on his face as he held a bloodied bounty poster in his hand. So I was right. The one I chose as my blood brother would not succumb to fate so easily. I hope we will get to meet each other soon enough, Ross, my hawk remarked. He then suddenly sent out a flying slash by swinging his sword gracefully, which completely severed the massive marine ship that lay anchored on the shore into 2 halves. Recently, marine pursuits had been increasing, but he reveled in killing these marines. He never once doubted Ross's ability to survive. Someone who could defeat him would not die so easily. Originally, he still had a small conflicting emotion that Ross was a marine, but now he held a bounty poster, which meant that his blood brother was similar to him, a man hunted by the world. Within Marineford, inside Zephyr's house, Virgo was holding 2 new bounty posters that portrayed the new bounties of his young masters. He couldn't help but shed a silent tear. Just then, a small kid tackled Virgo from behind. "Brother Virgo, come, let's have lunch." "Mother has made steak for lunch," the kid chimed. It was none other than Zephyr's son. Although sometimes Virgo felt annoyed because of the child's overenthusiasm, today he could cut him some slack. Today was a joyous occasion. How about we go get some ice cream after lunch?" Virgo added. He had been holding on to too much sadness these 3 months. Maybe relaxing for today might be a good thing, he thought to himself, and he picked up the kid, moving towards the dining room. Almost a month later, somewhere in the calm belt between North Blue and the New World, there lay a primal island filled with prehistoric life forms. Lush greenery covered the landscape, towering trees with thick foliage, vibrant flowers, and winding rivers. Strange and exotic creatures roamed freely, from towering dinosaurs to colorful birds and elusive beasts lurking in the shadows. Within a hidden cove, a small caravel lay anchored, nestled among the rocky cliffs and dense vegetation. The island exuded an air of mystery, untouched by modern civilization and shrouded in the secrets of its ancient past. A young teen who had captured the world's attention was now on this island, dragging a massive sea king towards the interior of the island, where the current Dongquixote family resided. After moving in for another 10 minutes, I approached a clearing where a cooking fire was prepared, upon which lay a massive sea king, almost completely devoured by the occupants surrounding the fire. It had been almost a month since I had rescued Daffy from the clutches of those bastards in Mary Gosa. He stayed unconscious for the first week, but then his drive and will to survive brought him back. Since then, he has been trying to regain his strength. Isho's presence had been a miracle because, despite being blind, the man had decent knowledge of medicine. I had originally feared that I might have to resort to some dangerous tactics to get proper medical attention for Daffy, but Isho seemed to work his charm and was able to revive my brother. Chapter 76. Even Gila had recovered enough to move around on her own, but she had taken quite the beating while trying to save the kids, so she had to take it slow for now as her physique was not as robust as Daffy's, so she will be mostly resting for a month or two. Daffy currently sported hundreds of griosome scars on his body, a testament to the torture he had withstood during his capture. "Quick, little brother, set up the Sea King's carcass over the flames." "Let me grill it," Daffy said, already having gained some weight but still needing to completely recover. He had begun to understand Seimekikan, life return, from the information I had shared, and with much intervention, Daffy was on his way to mastering the technique completely. With the massive amounts of Sea King meat that I continuously brought in, none of us would have to worry about food nor their recovery. Our family had completely isolated itself from the world. I did not want to take any chances. Although I could run away carrying Daffy, I couldn't leave behind the rest of the family. So, isolation for the time being was the best choice until we could grow a bit stronger and the seas became more chaotic. From my estimate, there was still a year's time until Roger surrendered to the Marines, and I needed to help my family grow strong within this year, especially Daffy and Isho. Even I had to hone my skills so that I could comfortably challenge Admiral-level powerhouses. My current power level had just breached the initial stages of Admiral level. Daffy's biggest drawback all these years was a lack of a proper instructor. While I studied under Garp, my brother had to rely on the snippets of information that I had sent him over the years. According to Daffy's explanation, he had just about mid-level proficiency when it came to armament haki, and his observation haki was about the same. The only praiseworthy thing was Daffy's uncanny harmony with his devil fruit powers. Despite only having the flame fruit for a few years, his mastery over the flame powers seemed pretty good. As I set up the new Sea King while discarding the old bones, Daffy manipulated his flames to grill the food. The tantalizing aroma of the food attracted quite a few wildlife, but the true powerhouses of this island remained in the core. I was currently using these small animals, which towered over 10 meters, to train and temper Lucci and Gladius. As Isho kept a watchful eye on Lucci and Gladius during their training against the island's monsters, it was just Daffy and me by the fire. Despite Daffy's attempts to conceal it, I could sense that my brother was struggling internally, his emotions in disarray. He had yet to open up about what had transpired in the New World before his capture. Unexpectedly, Daffy broke the silence with a question that caught me off guard. "Why did you choose to follow me, little brother?" His gaze was fixed on the dancing flames, and his thoughts were clouded with doubt and remorse. After the loss of our mother, Daffy had only come to accept Treble and the others as family, and their fate must have weighed heavily on him. "I know how the world sees me now, especially after the last 3 months, Daffy continued, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "I used to believe I still held the privilege of a dragon, but I've come to realize how naive I've been. You could have left me for dead and started a new life of your own. Why did you come for me, brother? Do I need a reason, Daffy? You're my brother, and that's all that matters," I replied, feeling a surge of emotion. "Tell me, would you have come for me if you knew I was the one captured?" Without hesitation, Daffy nodded, acknowledging that he would have done everything in his power to save me if our roles were reversed. As the crackling flames cast flickering shadows across Daffy's face, I could see the turmoil raging within him. His eyes, usually gleaming with confidence and defiance, now held a hint of vulnerability, a rawness that cut through the facade he so often wore. It was as if the firelight had illuminated the truth he had long tried to bury beneath layers of bravado. "Daffy," I began softly, reaching out to him, "the world's perception of us doesn't define who we are. Yes, the last 3 months have been brutal, revealing the harsh reality of how we're viewed by those who hold power. But you are more than just a pawn in their game, more than the sum of their judgments. So what if they laugh at us now? We will ultimately have the last laugh. Remember, brother, maybe you might think that it is our own choice if we want to give up, but that is no longer an option for the both of us. It's not just about us anymore. It's the dream of everyone who sacrificed their lives to bring us here. We need to at least achieve our goals for their sake, and if that means burning the world in its wake, then so be it. So what if people call us evil or villains? Who isn't a villain, brother? Everyone is a villain in someone's story, I remarked while tearing a chunk of meat from the grilled sea king. For a moment, there was silence between us, broken only by the sound of the flames devouring the wood. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Daffy turned to meet my gaze. In his eyes, I saw a glimmer of hope, a spark of determination that had been overshadowed by doubt. With my voice I could feel that the conqueror's haki of my brother, which seemed to crack under doubt, blazed again. It roared like the all-consuming flame. "Thank you, little brother," Daffy whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "For reminding me of who I am and of who we are." Then he started laughing while looking at the sky like a maniac, as if the final shackle that held him back was finally released. His conqueror's haki soared, and even I felt a bit of a pressure from my brother's house Hoku, but I composed myself. Meanwhile Isho, who was helping the kids train, also felt the pressure soaring through the island. "There is another little monster. Sigh, what have I got myself into?" he chuckled. He had already made peace with how he ended up with a family that stood exact opposite to his morals, but then he realized that fate must have some grand plan to make him follow this family, and as he had already made his decision despite Ross giving him a way out, and as a man who believed in fate, he would remain loyal to the end. The next morning, we were already immersed in our new training session. "Isho-san is going to play a very important part in our upcoming training," I explained. "Ross-kun, are you sure? Don't you think this is going a bit overboard?" Isho couldn't help but ask. Standing before him was Daffy, wrapped in sea stone chains that I had taken away while I had rescued Daffy. Sea stone was a rare resource, so even back then I chose to take it back with me so that it could help us develop resistance, and this was the chain used to restrain Daffy in Mary Gosa, so the purity of the sea stone was pretty high. Daffy was completely pale now, influenced by the sea stone. He had an ugly expression when I told him that he looked like an sick flamingo. Barely able to keep himself up because of the sea stone, Daffy nodded as Isho used his gravity powers on him. As Isho exerted his gravity powers, Daffy's already weakened state became even more pronounced. His knees buckled, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he struggled against the overwhelming force pressing down on him. Despite his efforts, Daffy couldn't maintain his composure, his breathing becoming labored as he gritted his teeth against the pain. Gladius and Lucci stood by the side, observing the intense training with a mixture of awe and apprehension. When I invited them to join, Gladius quickly shook his head, preferring to remain on the sidelines. However, Lucci's determination shone through as he stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. As Lucci approached, Isho moved to decided to reduce the gravity pressure, but I intervened, allowing the full force of the pressure to bear down on the young boy as well. With a determined expression, Lucci pressed his hands against the ground, his body straining against the oppressive force. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Lucci refused to give up. Gritting his teeth, he pushed against the ground with all his strength, each tiny movement a testament to his unwavering determination. His muscles trembled with exertion, but he remained steadfast in his resolve to overcome the challenge before him. Watching Lucci's perseverance, I couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration. Despite the immense difficulty of the task, he refused to back down, demonstrating a resilience far beyond his years. With each struggle, he grew stronger, his spirit unyielding. "Determination like that is rare, Lucci," I remarked, offering him words of encouragement. "Keep pushing, and you'll achieve greatness." Turning to my brother, who was already groaning under the influence of the sea stone and gravity, I said, "Daffy, even little Lucci is standing strong. Don't tell me you're going to admit defeat in front of a kid. Invoke your flame powers, let me see how far you've come in all these years." My tone carried a mocking edge, knowing well that Daffy disliked comparisons and had pride. Gritting his teeth, he pushed himself upright once more. "You moron! Can't you see I'm wrapped in sea stone? Do you think everyone is an idiot like you? How am I supposed to use my flame powers while being influenced by the sea stone?" Daffy managed to yell despite the discomfort. "And who told you that one cannot use their fruit powers under the influence of sea stone? It just means no one dared to explore such a possibility, it just means no one has found a way. But we wouldn't know until we tried. So stop complaining and invoke your flame powers, Daffy," I retorted. I already knew what I was asking of Daffy might not even be possible, even with my twisted soul I was influenced by the sea stone to a certain extent, but I was pushing Doffy to achieve something unprecedented. I had two vague possible theories that might help someone achieve this feat of developing resistance to the sea stone to an unprecedented level, but in this mysterious world where one's will could achieve anything, even my theory might be a possibility. The first theory that I had in mind was absolute mastery of Haki, which seemed simple yet mysterious. If will can manifest itself into tangible forces, then there should be a way to hone Haki to a level where it can help a devil fruit user ignore the weakness. However, this was too monumental a task, as never before such a feat was recorded in the long history. Even someone as strong as Whitebeard in his prime was not completely immune to the sea. Despite being called the strongest man in the world, he was a landlubber, and his Haki must have been top-notch. So the Haki mastery required to achieve immunity must be way beyond the level that was achieved by these monsters. The second theory was even more exaggerated, and it involved gaining absolute control of the devil fruit itself. I believed there was a stage beyond awakening, and when a devil fruit user reaches such mastery, it might help mitigate the weakness inherent to the devil fruits. No one exactly knows where exactly these devil fruits come from, and this was a mystery yet to be answered. My enhanced resistance towards sea stone was an anomaly, and by my estimate it could be explained because of me having two souls. So according to my second theory, this meant that there hasn't been anyone in this world since the advent of the devil fruits, who has truly mastered their devil fruits beyond the stage of awakening. Maybe those who ruled the world might have reached that stage with them being immortal and all. Now I realized why mythical Zoans were so favored, even above Logia. Consuming the mythical Zoan alters one's physique to an inhuman level. Maybe it might even give them a certain degree of leeway under the influence of the sea, even without mastery. With that in mind, I turned back to teasing my brother, attempting to channel his anger to invoke his devil fruit powers. Chapter 77. In the cozy home nestled on the outskirts of Betrayal Island in South Blue, Roger, the legendary pirate king, lived a life of domestic bliss with his beloved wife, Porgas de Rouge. To the outside world, they were just an ordinary couple, their true identities hidden beneath the facade of a simple, happy life. On this particular morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the quaint kitchen where Roger was attempting to prepare breakfast. With a comically oversized apron tied around his waist and a determined expression on his face, he set about his task with gusto. "Roger, I told you not to play with the knives like that," Rouge scolded gently, entering the kitchen with a smile as she observed her husband's antics. Roger sheepishly put down the knife he had been wielding like a pirate sword and grinned sheepishly at his wife. "Sorry, Rouge, I'm just trying to add a bit of excitement to our morning routine." Rouge rolled her eyes affectionately, shaking her head at her husband's antics. "You never cease to amaze me, Roger." As Roger continued his culinary escapades, he couldn't resist the urge to add his own flair to the proceedings. With a flourish, he attempted to flip a pancake in the air, only to send it soaring across the kitchen, much to Rouge's amusement. "Roger, honestly, sometimes I wonder how you managed to survive this long." Rouge chuckled, stepping in to rescue the runaway pancake before it hit the floor. Undeterred by his culinary mishaps, Roger flashed a grin at his wife. "It's all part of my charm, ha 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 ha." Even though Roger was playful, his love for Rouge was clear in everything he did. Whether he was chopping vegetables awkwardly or trying to play a tune on a frying pan, his affection for her was obvious. As they sat down to enjoy their breakfast together, Roger couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment wash over him. In Rouge's presence, he found solace, companionship, and a love that transcended the trials and tribulations of the past. Outside their humble abode, the townsfolk of Betrayal went about their daily lives, unaware of the true identities of the couple within. To them, Roger and Rouge were simply another pair of neighbors, living out their days in peaceful anonymity. But for Roger and Rouge, their home was a sanctuary, a place where they could be themselves without the weight of the Pirate King's legendary reputation bearing down upon them. In each other's company, they found laughter, joy, and a love that knew no bounds. Just then, a shady figure who had been watching Roger's house hurriedly moved away, sweat beading on his forehead at the startling discovery. Hidden within this peaceful town was the legendary Pirate King, who lived a humble life after causing chaos across the world. As a Cypher Paul agent, he had initially come to this island following a minor character, but what he found here shook him to the core. He needed to inform his superiors immediately. Capturing Roger would be a monumental achievement, especially now that his crew wasn't around him. Finding a secluded spot, he took out a transponder snail to contact his superiors. But before he could initiate the conversation, a hand emerged from the darkness, gripping his face and pinning him to the wall. The transponder snail fell to the ground, crushed underfoot by his assailant. Why do you have to disturb my peaceful life? I've already quit my pirate ways. Let me spend my final days in peace. Roger spoke softly, yet his voice carried absolute authority. The CP agent whimpered and struggled, but Roger's grip was unyielding, leaving him no room for escape. Before the agent could plead for mercy, Roger clenched his palm, crushing the agent's skull like a melon. In a secluded clearing on a certain island within the Com Belt, two brothers engaged in an intense training session. Though it was meant to be a mere spar, I refused to hold back. Flame Emperor. Daffy conjured a dazzling array of flames, attempting to engulf the entire training area with me in it. Isho and the others watched from a safe distance, with Gila observing the spectacle. Using Shave, I flickered behind Daffy. With my observation haki, his movements seemed sluggish, and I refrained from relying on my future sight to make it fair. Thunder Blitz. My arm transformed into a thick lightning pillar and crashed into Daffy's back. He reacted just in the nick of time, entering his elemental state. However, I had used Haki's armament emission in tandem with my lightning-clad punch. Daffy dematerialized and reappeared a dozen meters away, spitting out blood as my attack connected. His armament Haki hadn't yet reached my standards, so he took the brunt of the damage despite his reaction in time. Tui, you surely aren't holding back, little brother. Are you planning to kill me or something? Daffy chuckled, wiping blood stains from his mouth. He had been recovering splendidly over the past week due to the continuous intake of Sea King meat and Isho's intense gravity training. Isho was truly a blessing for our family, his fruit power became the perfect tool for our training. Don't whine, Daffy. I'm not even using the full extent of my powers. As you are now, you might not even survive a couple of hits from an Admiral-level powerhouse. We only have a year to train in peace, then we'll have to assert our dominance in the new world as the whole world descends into chaos, I admonished my brother, who laughed despite getting beaten up. He had become much more unpredictable after his recent transformation. Little brother, you're too impatient. If what you say is true, once the world boils over, those old guys up in the Holy Land won't have time to take care of us. We can grow peacefully, and I won't repeat the same mistakes, Daffy countered, lunging forward with majestic flame destroyer. Trying to catch me off guard. But with a snap of my fingers, I whispered, Lightning Dragon. A large black dragon made of lightning descended from the midday sky, targeting Daffy as he rushed toward me. His observation haki picked up on the threat, and he redirected his attack toward the sky to intercept the lightning dragon. Under Daffy's manipulation, the torrent of flames shifted and roared, taking the form of a massive phoenix, surging forth to clash with the descending lightning. Despite his efforts, the lightning tore through the phoenix, although the lightning's might had diminished significantly, making it easy for Daffy to dodge. Daffy propelled himself through the dangerous lightning field created by the dragon, rushing toward me. Overheat. He fired a long, flaming whip, easily severing through the surrounding trees in its path. However, I was too fast for Daffy to catch. I simply entered my elemental state, letting the flame whip pass harmlessly through me. Annoyance flashed across Daffy's face, and he chose to release his House Hoku to confront me. Red lightning danced through the area. With a smirk, I taunted my brother. Daffy, are you sure about using House Hoku? Don't come crying to me later. I released my own Conqueror's haki to clash with Daffy's. Mine was clearly superior, as black and gold lightning danced around me, honed in environments akin to those where Roger and Garp had unleashed all their might. In comparison, Daffy's current House Hoku was, let's say, childish. Seeing my playful smirk, Daffy grew more incensed and prepared to counter. But I quickly clad my arm with armament haki and caught the flame whip, pulling Daffy toward me. Meanwhile, I coated my other arm with lightning. Daffy was completely caught off guard as I lifted him off the ground. With a resounding boom, my punch connected with Daffy's gut. The shockwave generated coursed through the battlefield, and Daffy, taking the brunt of the hit, flew through the air like a broken kite, crashing into the forest behind him. Multiple trees snapped like twigs in his path, and Daffy's gut area was now charred black from the lightning, his flesh seared due to the high temperature. Cough. Cough. Daffy lay sprawled on the ground, his face contorted in pain as he greedily gulped down air, his chest heaving up and down. He groggily sat up amidst the debris, letting out another anguished cry as his fingers traced over the charred area of his stomach. It's official, little brother. I freaking hate you. Daffy's comment was part mockery, part rage, his teeth gritted in agony from the inflicted damage. I transformed myself into lightning and materialized next to him, offering my arm for support, which he took with another muffled scream as he struggled to his feet. "Tell me true, Ross. What kind of maniacal training did you go through during your time in the Marines?" Despite being proud of his brother's strength, Daffy couldn't shake the guilt that his little sibling had endured so much to achieve their goals. He glanced at the scars on my throat and chest, bitterness welling within him. Unlike me, Daffy's body was littered with scars, but he paid them no mind. "We gotta do something, little brother. Although we don't have the strength to face them directly, I want to hit those bastards where it hurts, or at least cause them quite the headache," Daffy commented, his rage still burning bright even after emerging from the shadows of the Holy Land event. I pondered for a moment and realized that my brother was right. Our actions hadn't inconvenienced the world government in the slightest. As I dug through my memory, a plan began to form. "Tell me, Daffy, what do you know of the poneglyphs?" I smirked, knowing this might be our key to power in the future. I explained the significance of the poneglyphs to Daffy, his laughter growing more sinister as the plan unfolded. "That's a good one, brother. So when do we leave?" Daffy was eager to depart immediately to carry out the plan, but caution urged restraint. If my estimate was correct, the whole world would be hunting for us. To execute our plan successfully, we needed to tread carefully. Our first destination was Fishman Island, but timing was crucial. I had no idea when the road poneglyph on Fishman Island was moved or by whom. According to canon, when Roger was on the hunt for the road poneglyph, it was still there. Based on estimates, it was only taken away after the start of the Great Pirate Age. That gave us approximately a year to lay our hands on one of the 4 road poneglyphs. Every decision we made from here on out would shape our destiny and the fate of the world. "Where are we leaving?" Gladius, walking alongside us with Lucci supporting Gila, asked curiously. They had been away from civilization for over a month, so the prospect of leaving the island intrigued little Gladius. "Daffy-kun, I don't think it's advisable for us to leave in such a condition," Isho chimed in, sharing his input. "You have yet to recover completely, and if I'm not wrong, after what Ross-kun did at Mary Gosa, the entire world will be hunting for the two of you. If it's something I can accomplish, I can do it. No one even knows that I am part of the family. If the two of you were to venture out currently, I'm sure, no matter how careful you are, it will attract attention." Daffy considered Isho's words. Originally, he didn't like the idea of someone like Isho with a righteous character joining their family, especially at its core. But considering Ross was the one to bring him in, he decided to cut his brother some slack this time around. What Isho says has some merit to it. I will need some more time to recover completely, and as we are now, throwing ourselves as bait doesn't sound like a sound plan. What do you think, little brother? Daffy turned to question me. I was already contemplating the feasibility of the plan. For me, we just had to whisk away the road poneglyph without catching anyone's attention. With the recent tide of pirates, Fishman Island should be chaotic. If Isho could employ a few fishmen from the lawless area to help move the poneglyph, then he might be able to achieve it without causing much commotion. So I quickly started explaining the plan to the rest, and only Daffy and Isho understood what exactly we were going after. "It sounds like a good idea, little brother," Daffy remarked, finding the plan feasible. However, my concern was the man who was going to execute the plan. I turned to the blind man. "But Isho-san, I'll need your word that you will dispatch of all the fishmen that help with moving the poneglyph. I advise you to employ the fishmen from the lawless area. You can find some unsavory characters among them. You should have no problem dispatching them, right?" I wanted to ensure Isho didn't mess up. Soon enough, once Roger openly declared about the One Piece, the entire world would go crazy in search of knowledge about these poneglyphs. Even the world government would start taking drastic action to erase all knowledge about poneglyphs. Chapter 78. The main reason I felt that Isho was best suited to venture on this task was mainly because of his gravity fruit powers. These poneglyphs are indestructible and must be close to impossible to move. If not, with the world government's power, they must have at least secured these poneglyphs instead of letting them lie around the world. In my opinion, only people with specialized devil fruit powers like Shiki's float fruit, Isho's gravity fruit, and a few other devil fruits could achieve this feat. And if these poneglyphs were immune to devil fruit powers, Isho could simply manipulate the seabed on which the road poneglyph rested to whisk it away. Isho contemplated my words. Now that he was part of the Dongquixote family, he would have to do such things in the future. After a few minutes of contemplation, he nodded. Fine, in that case, I will carry out the task. But the question is, where will I move the so-called poneglyph? We will need a secure place to hide it. Daffy, who was contemplating our upcoming plan, finally revealed a smirk as he realized that there was a perfect place to hide the stolen poneglyph. Then we quickly started ironing out the details. Isho would venture alone into Fishman Island, hide the poneglyph in the designated place, and return. It would take him anywhere close to 2 months at the minimum to finish this mission, while myself, Daffy, and the rest would stay on the island and start training in earnest to prepare for the upcoming Great Pirate Age. O'Hara, West Blue. Little Robin was flipping through an ancient-looking book with relish while Lily, by her side, worked on some old, tattered parchment. Since Lily had introduced Robin to the world of books, the young girl had forgotten about her past perils. Nowadays, most of her life is spent in the library, and as for her family, they do not care for the little girl's fate. Ever since Lily had saved Robin from hunger and peril that fateful night, they had grown as close as siblings. Apart from being the librarian, Lily was also the youngest scholar in O'Hara at the age of 15. Little Robin, are you done with the book? You already skipped breakfast. I am not letting you skip lunch, and that goes for you too, Lily, a voice echoed through the entrance as an old man walked in with some scrolls in hand. This old man was none other than Professor Clover, the director of O'Hara Library. Since Robin was brought in by Lily, she has become the sweetheart of all the people in O'Hara Library. The little girl was an absolute genius, and many believed that soon she would break Lily's record of becoming the youngest scholar. Robin, immersed in the book, was distracted by the old voice and looked up. She suddenly realized she had skipped breakfast because she was too engrossed in the book. Meanwhile, Lily quickly arranged the tattered parchment, sealing it inside a glass case. Even though she was an adult compared to Robin, Lily had also forgotten about food, and she flushed in embarrassment. Sigh, both of you girls. I have no idea how to straighten you both up. Keep this up, and surely someday I am going to ban both of you from the library for skipping meals, the old man chuckled, while Robin had already moved next to him and started hugging his leg. Grandpa Clover, you promised me you would take me to see the secret project that all the scholars are working on. It has been a month, I want to see it now. Little Robin, mustering all her innocence, hung onto the old man, leaving him helpless. Professor Clover, now with a headache because of Robin's request, turned to Lily, who was giving him a sheepish smile. Originally, the project of the poneglyphs was supposed to be top secret, and they were risking their lives while working on it. However, Lily had let slip a few details about the poneglyphs, and as smart as the little girl was, she quickly discerned the nature of the project and started pestering the old man to take her to see the poneglyphs that recorded the true history of the world. He suddenly even thought about Olivia, who also held the same drive as his daughter. The main reason he permitted Robin to stay in the library was that he came to know that Robin was Nico Olivia's daughter. Little Robin, you shouldn't twist my words. I remember promising to take you to see the project once you become a scholar, but you have yet to become one. The project is only for scholars. Professor Clover tried to wiggle out, not knowing how else to console the little one. He had set Robin a target of becoming a scholar as a criteria. But Grandpa Clover, aren't you the director? I am sure you can make an exception. I just want to take a peek. I will not disturb anyone, I swear. Robin used her puppy dog eyes to try and coax the old man into bending to her will. Clover didn't know what to do, but then he finally succumbed to the overwhelming pressure from the little one. Fine, fine. I will take you to see the poneglyph, but first, let's go fill our bellies with food. The old man gestured for the two girls to follow him. Robin happily took the old man's arm as she was going to see the poneglyph for the first time in her life. See calendar year, 1500. Time flew by like the tide. Nearly 4 months passed since the Dongquixote brothers and their entire family vanished from the world's sight. Despite the world government's exhaustive efforts to locate them, no trace or news of their whereabouts emerged. Isho had successfully retrieved the road poneglyph and had just returned to the island after safely hiding away the road poneglyph in the designated place picked by Daffy. However, he had returned with additional baggage, a little mermaid. I was completely caught off guard when Isho brought Shirley back with him. From Isho's explanation, it seemed the little mermaid had clung to the blind swordsman after divining the changes in this world and its future, since she was waiting near the area where the road poneglyph was. According to her divination, following Isho wherever he went became her road to salvation. Despite her young age and the risks involved, she decided to take a leap of faith and follow Isho. Isho, being the kind man he was, couldn't abandon an innocent child who stuck to him like a leech. Originally, he had wished to leave the little girl behind after securing the poneglyph according to the plan. However, as Shirley kept following him and eventually fell into the hands of slavers, Isho finally chose to intervene and save the little girl. It seemed like she was fated to join the family. Currently in the center of the island, teeming with perilous life forms, a central clearing served as the arena for two poised fighters. 1. A blind man adorned in a faded purple yukata, faced off against a teen enveloped in dancing blue flames. They were none other than Isho and Daffy. During these 4 months, Daffy had dedicated himself wholly to training, pushing himself to inhuman levels under my guidance. With diligence, he honed both his haki prowess and devil fruit powers. But currently, he has challenged Isho to a fight to decide the fate of the little mermaid who had clung to Isho all the way from Fishman Island to this secluded island on the calm belt. This was more like Daffy finding an excuse to let loose and see how much he had grown, as he had no issues with letting the mermaid join the family, especially after knowing her special powers of divination, as she would be a valuable asset to the family. Originally unaware of the true potential of his flame fruit, Daffy's flames had evolved significantly from my knowledge of past lives. From a standard orange hue, his flames now gleamed a vibrant blue, their temperature exceeding 4,000 degrees. The most intriguing aspect was their potential for further enhancement. At his peak exertion, Daffy's flames displayed a faint purple tinge, suggesting even greater heat levels. Presently, his flames could effortlessly melt through steel. In terms of haki, Daffy had already grasped the basics of emission and was progressing toward mastery. His observation haki had also seen significant improvement. Likewise, Isho had made remarkable strides in swordsmanship and observation haki, nearing the threshold of Admiral level. All he required were battles to push him beyond his limits. Gladius and Lucci, too, showed promising development. While Gladius's talent was decent but unremarkable, Lucci displayed exceptional potential. Hailed as the greatest genius in 8 centuries, Lucci possessed an innate aptitude for greatness, proving himself to be a formidable force in the making. Roaring Tiger. Isho unleashed a massive surge of gravity with a horizontal slash, but Daffy was prepared, surrounding himself with swirling blue flames. Hell Blaze. He countered, releasing a torrent of blue flames. The two forces clashed, gravity-infused sword slashes against haki-infused blue flames, vying for dominance. Shockwaves rippled through the clearing, tearing at the trees that surrounded us. I sat atop a boulder a few hundred meters away, watching the battle unfold with attention. Beside me were Lucci, Gladius, little Shirley, and Gila, all observing the clash with keen interest. As Isho and Daffy clashed, the air crackled with tension, each of their moves calculated and precise. Isho, the blind swordsman, wielded his sword with mastery honed through years of practice and battle. With each swing, he infused his blade with the invisible force of armament haki, enhancing its cutting power and precision. Daffy, on the other hand, danced amidst swirling blue flames, his mastery over his devil fruit powers evident in every movement. With each step, he manipulated the flames around him, weaving them into intricate patterns of destruction. His haki-enhanced punches and kicks added another layer of ferocity to his attacks. Hunting Tiger. Isho lunged forward, his blade slicing through the air with a swift and deadly arc. Daffy countered with a wall of blazing flames, Flame Emperor. The heat and intensity of his attack forced Isho to backpedal. But Isho was relentless, his gravity powers amplifying the force of his strikes as he pressed the offensive. Daffy's eyes narrowed as he focused his armament haki, his flames intensifying in response. Blue Heaven. With a roar, he surged forward, meeting Isho's blade with his own haki-infused fists. The clash sent shockwaves rippling through the clearing, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. As the battle raged on, both combatants pushed themselves to their limits, their determination unwavering. Each blow exchanged was met with equal force and skill, the clash of their powers creating a spectacle that captivated all who witnessed it. As the battle raged on for more than an hour, both combatants pushed themselves to their limits, their determination unwavering. Each blow exchanged was met with equal force and skill, the clash of their powers creating a spectacle that captivated all who witnessed it. In the end, it was impossible to determine a clear victor. The fight ended in a stalemate, with Isho standing poised, still brimming with energy, while opposite him, Daffy stood battered and bruised but unbowed. However, with my trained eyes, I could clearly see that Isho held a clear advantage over my brother for now, as he was holding back. I attributed it to the age difference between the two fighters, as Isho had a decade of extra time to hone his skills, and his talent was also top-notch. Just then, I flickered and appeared in between the two, who were preparing to go at each other once again. That's enough for today. I don't think anyone has any issues with little Shirley joining us. The world will soon plunge into chaos, and we will ride the chaotic tide to carve out our own place in the new world, I remarked, knowing from my estimate that Roger would soon surrender and the Great Pirate Age would begin. So it's time we get back to the world soon, is it, little brother? Doffy questioned. He had already been vexed by staying on this island for months now. Although he didn't complain about the training, I could feel his frustration with hiding away from the world. But he knew that he was truly weak as of now. Coming face to face with the true powers of Mary Giose had made him realize how wide the chasm was. In order to achieve our goal, he needed more than just the strength he had now. He needed power, authority, and wealth. We needed all of those and more if we truly wanted to challenge the true rulers of this world. Say, Doffy, what are our upcoming plans? Are we going back to North Blue? I couldn't help but ask. There were quite a few things they needed to do once they returned to the world, re-establish the Donquixote family and, most importantly, find out what happened to Senor and the rest, whose fates were still not confirmed. No, little brother, we will not start with the North Blue anymore. We will directly establish our power base in the new world. Our first goal is to establish ourselves as the overlords of the new world in the coming years, Doffy remarked. With his ambitious words, I could guess how things were going to progress. Soon enough, the new world seas would come under the influence of the emperors of the sea, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and, in the future, Shanks. But now, with me and my family in the mix, the sea was going to become even more chaotic. Ross, remember what I have told you before. Kaido is mine to kill. Once I am strong enough, I will personally tear him up. So don't you dare touch him before then, Doffy commented, his voice dangerous. He still vividly remembered the day the whole family fell because of Kaido's betrayal, so Doffy personally marked Kaido as his target to kill. Maybe it will take years or decades for him to reach Kaido's level, but I could see the resolve in Doffy's eyes that he was dead set on fulfilling his words. He wanted to serve vengeance with his own two hands. I acknowledged my brother's words and turned to the rest of the family, beginning to explain our upcoming plans. There were too many things that we needed to do before the seas descended into chaos. Chapter 79. Soon enough, the months flew by as the Donquixote family vanished from the eyes of the world completely once again, delving themselves into hellish-level training. Finally, as the time flew by, the month of September approached, and the world had somewhat returned to a momentary lull as the world government had dropped the manhunt for the Donquixote brothers. Even the disappearance of the road poneglyph from Fishman Island seemed not to catch the attention of anyone, and even the current condition of Fishman Island was too chaotic for anyone to care. As promised, Isho had disposed of anyone who knew about the matter with the exception of Shirley, and currently the kid was part of the family, but it was all going to change today. In the heart of a remote South Blue Island, nestled amidst the tranquil beauty of the surroundings, stood a marine base. Within its walls, a couple of marines sat leisurely at the front desk, engaged in casual chatter about the weather. Their voices mingled with the gentle breeze that wafted through the open windows, creating an atmosphere of relaxed camaraderie. As they conversed, a man strolled into the base, his steps unhurried and his demeanor calm. The marines paid him little attention, their focus on their conversation was uninterrupted. Oblivious to the man's presence, they continued their banter, their laughter echoing softly in the room. Clearing his throat, the man attempted to catch the marine's attention, but his efforts were met with dismissive gestures. "Wait your turn," one of the marines muttered, waving him off without a second glance. Ignored and unnoticed, the man stood silently, his patience seemingly endless. Finally, unable to bear the disregard any longer, the man spoke up. "I wish to surrender myself to the Marines," he announced, his voice calm yet resolute. His words hung in the air, momentarily ignored by the Marines, who erupted into laughter at the audacity of his request. "What crime have you committed to merit imprisonment?" One of the Marines jeered, his tone mocking. "Do you have a bounty on your head, grandiose enough to warrant our attention?" Another chimed in, his laughter echoing throughout the room. Unperturbed by their mockery, the man reached into his cloak and withdrew a crumpled bounty poster. With a swift motion, he slammed it onto the desk before them, the sound reverberating through the room like a thunderclap. The Marines' laughter faltered, replaced by a stunned silence as they stared at the poster in disbelief. The Marine at the reception desk hesitantly reached for the bounty poster, his hands trembling slightly as he unfolded it. His eyes widened in shock as he beheld the face staring back at him from the worn parchment. It was the bounty poster of none other than the Pirate King himself, Gold Roger. A chill swept through the room, freezing the air and sending shivers down the spines of all present. The Marines stood rooted to the spot, their faces drained of color as they gazed upon the wanted criminal standing before them. Roger's gaze met theirs, unwavering and filled with a quiet intensity. In that moment, the Marine base was gripped by a profound sense of fear, as the realization dawned upon them that they were face to face with the most infamous pirate in history. The silence stretched on, broken only by the soft rustle of paper as the bounty poster fluttered in the breeze. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted as the Marines found themselves at the mercy of the man they had once dismissed with laughter. "So, should I wait for my turn?" Roger remarked with a wide smile. As the gravity of the situation sank in, a Marine soldier burst into the base, his footsteps echoing loudly in the otherwise silent room. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear, as he sprinted towards the office of the captain, his heart pounding in his chest as if death itself were chasing him. The other Marines watched in stunned silence as their comrade rushed past them, his panicked movements a stark contrast to the casual atmosphere that had prevailed just moments before. Sensing the urgency in the soldier's actions, a sense of unease began to settle over the base, spreading like wildfire among the ranks. "Captain! Captain! Urgent news!" In the captain's office, the soldier's arrival was met with a flurry of activity. "Soldier, what's the urgency? Speak quickly." The captain questioned the Marine, who took a few moments to catch his breath and yelled. "Sir, it's the Pirate King. He's surrendered himself to us." The captain, a seasoned veteran with years of experience under his belt, immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. "Roger? Surrendered? Get the word out immediately. I want all units on high alert. Secure the perimeter and fortify our defenses. We cannot afford to be caught off guard." With a steely resolve, he sprang into action, issuing orders to his subordinates with precision and authority. The soldier nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, and quickly relayed the captain's orders to the rest of the base. Panic rippled through the ranks as Marines scrambled to carry out their duties with newfound urgency. Within moments, the entire Marine base was thrown into chaos as word spread like wildfire that the Pirate King himself had surrendered to the Marines. Panic swept through the ranks as soldiers scrambled to secure the perimeter and fortify their defenses, their training kicking in as they prepared for the inevitable onslaught. "Marine 1, did you hear? The Pirate King surrendered himself." "Marine 2, no way. This can't be happening." "Marine 3, we need to stay calm and follow orders. This is not a drill." Meanwhile, back at Marine headquarters, the news of Roger's surrender sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of command. Admirals and high-ranking officials convened in emergency meetings, devising strategies to deal with the unprecedented situation. The realization that the most notorious pirate in history was now in their custody sent a ripple of fear and excitement through the ranks of the Marines. For some, it was an opportunity to make a name for themselves by capturing the most wanted man in the world. For others, it was a daunting prospect, knowing that they now held the fate of the entire world in their hands. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one thing was clear: the era of Roger, the Pirate King, had come to an end. And with his surrender, a new chapter in history was about to unfold, one that would test the mettle of the Marines and shake the foundations of the world to its core. Impel Down, the infamous underwater prison nestled within the unforgiving depths of the Calm Belt. Also known as the Underwater Prison and the Great Prison, this formidable stronghold served as the pinnacle of the world government's justice system, housing the most dangerous criminals and pirates known to man. As one approached Impel Down, they'll be greeted by a towering, submerged structure rising ominously from the seabed. Surrounded by the tranquil waters of the Calm Belt, the prison's imposing silhouette is juxtaposed against the serene backdrop, a stark reminder of the darkness lurking within. But one mustn't let its serene surroundings fool them. Beneath the surface lies a labyrinthine network of cells and torture chambers, each meticulously designed to contain and punish the most hardened criminals. Constructed entirely from sea stone, the cells serve as impenetrable fortresses, rendering even the most powerful devil fruit users powerless against their confines. Within these grim confines, the air is heavy with the stench of despair and suffering. The sound of echoing screams and the crack of whips reverberate through the corridors, a constant reminder of the brutality that awaits those who dare to defy the law. Torture chambers, equipped with instruments of unimaginable cruelty, stand as a testament to the prison's unwavering commitment to justice. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of Impel Down is its guardianship by the monstrous sea kings, whose colossal forms loom beneath the surface, serving as both protectors and deterrents to would-be escapees. Alongside these behemoths, the prison is fortified by a fleet of marine battleships, ready to intercept anyone who dares to approach. In the heart of Impel Down lies its core, a central hub of activity where guards patrol tirelessly, ever vigilant against the threat of rebellion. Here, prisoners are subjected to the harshest of punishments, their screams echoing through the darkness as they endure unimaginable torment. However, even within the formidable walls of Impel Down, a deadly silence reigned supreme. The Pirate King himself, Roger, sat nestled within the confines of one of the prison cells on level 6. Surprisingly, even the notoriously unruly inmates of Eternal Hell seemed to have fallen into an ominous silence. Whether out of fear, admiration, or respect, no one dared to disrupt the deadly serenity that had enveloped the once chaotic prison. Roger, however, seemed unperturbed by the hushed atmosphere surrounding him. Despite being shackled, he exuded an aura of majesty that commanded attention. The shackles restraining him were little more than a formality, he could easily break free from them if he so desired. With a smirk playing on his lips, Roger awaited the arrival of his visitor, the sound of light footsteps echoing through the corridor as they drew nearer. "Roger! You bastard! What game are you playing at?" Garp's booming voice echoed through the corridor as he stood opposite his longtime rival, Roger, who wore a goofy smile inside the cell. Garp had rushed back to Impel Down upon receiving news of Roger's surrender in the New World. His frustration was palpable as he confronted the Pirate King. "You vanished for more than a year, then popped out of nowhere and suddenly turned yourself in. I was supposed to capture you, you bastard." Garp's anger simmered beneath his gruff exterior, his fists clenched in frustration. Roger's laughter filled the air, a mischievous glint in his eyes as he faced his old friend and rival. "Ha ha ha, it just means I win, Garp. You'll never be able to capture me," Roger remarked mockingly, relishing the opportunity to tease Garp once more. Despite his jovial demeanor, Roger could sense the sadness that Garp was trying to conceal. He knew that his surrender had come as a disappointment to his rival, a stark reminder of the end of an era that they had both helped to shape. As Garp's frustration lingered in the air, Roger's carefree demeanor contrasted sharply with the gravity of the situation. Despite being confined within the cell, Roger exuded an aura of confidence and authority, his smirk unwavering even in the face of Garp's fury. "Playing games until the very end, Roger?" Garp's voice rumbled with a mixture of exasperation and admiration. Deep down, he couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for the man who had been his rival for so many years. Roger chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "What can I say, Garp? Life's too short not to have a little fun, even in prison." Garp shook his head, his expression a mixture of disbelief and begrudging admiration. "You always did have a knack for finding trouble, Roger. But surrendering yourself like this, it's not like you at all." Roger's smile softened, a hint of solemnity creeping into his gaze. "Times change, my friend. The world is shifting, and perhaps it's time for me to step aside and let the new generation take the reins." Garp's features softened at Roger's words, a sense of melancholy settling over him. Despite their rivalry, there was a deep bond between them forged through years of shared experiences and battles. As Roger's unexpected revelation hung in the air, Garp's expression shifted from gloom to shock, his mind racing with a mixture of emotions. Here he was, face to face with his longtime rival, discussing matters of life and death in the confines of Impel Down. "By the way, where is that protégé of yours?" Roger's inquiry hung in the air, a genuine curiosity evident in his tone. "I thought he would come to meet me now that my time is coming to an end. It would be nice to have a chat with that brat who might be at the center of the future era." Chapter 80. However, Roger's anticipation was met with a somber response from Garp. His face darkened, revealing the weight of unspoken troubles. Roger, perceptive as ever, noticed the shift in mood and understood that he had touched upon a sensitive topic. Something must have transpired during his absence that he wasn't privy to, having been disconnected from the outside world since the disbandment of his crew. Sensing Garp's gloomy disposition, Roger decided to address the matter he had in mind. Drawing closer to the cell door, Roger met Garp's gaze with a smile. "Garp. I am going to be a father," he announced, his voice carrying a mix of surprise and amusement. Garp, caught off guard by the unexpected revelation, felt a surge of emotions wash over him. The news was a curveball he hadn't anticipated, especially considering the precarious circumstances surrounding Roger's imprisonment. Despite the gravity of the situation, Garp chose not to disclose the extent of the world government's relentless pursuit of anyone associated with Roger. Revealing such information in Roger's presence could potentially provoke a dangerous reaction, one that Impel Down would struggle to contain. With a chuckle, Roger continued, his tone tinged with resignation. "But I will be dead by the time the child is born." Garp's headache intensified as he processed the weight of Roger's words, realizing the implications they carried. Unable to contain his concern, he questioned Roger's motives. "Why are you telling me this, Roger? Have you forgotten that I am with the Navy? We are tasked with hunting down anyone who was ever associated with you." Roger's smile widened as he observed Garp's reaction, a glimmer of mischief dancing in his eyes. "That's exactly why I am telling you this, Garp," he explained, his voice tinged with a sense of urgency. "The world government will retrace my steps for the past year." Roger's pause spoke volumes, and Garp filled in the gaps, understanding the perilous situation they faced. If the government uncovered any trace of Roger's bloodline, it would spell certain doom for his family, a fate Garp was unwilling to accept. "They will find her and kill her, but our unborn child is innocent, Garp." Roger's anger simmered beneath the surface as he spoke of Rouge's fate, his voice laced with bitterness. Even Garp, hardened by years of service to the Navy, couldn't deny the truth in Roger's words. The world government would stop at nothing to eradicate any remnants of Roger's legacy, sparing no one in their ruthless pursuit. Meeting Garp's gaze, Roger sighed, a sense of relief washing over him. "We have been fighting each other for years. I trust you as much as any of my shipmates. They might not currently be in a position to save my child." Garp grasped the weight of Roger's unspoken request, his protestations falling on deaf ears. "Don't you dare, Roger!" he began, but Roger cut him off with a bright smile, his resolve unshakable. "Save my child, my friend." Roger's words rang out with conviction, his trust in Garp unwavering despite their tumultuous history. "Stop talking nonsense, you bastard!" Garp's frustration boiled over, but Roger remained steadfast in his plea. "I know you'll do it. Take care of my child." Roger's confidence in Garp was unwavering as he uttered his final request, leaving Garp to grapple with the weight of his decision. Fortunately, there were no other Marines nearby to eavesdrop on their conversation, granting them a moment of privacy amidst the chaos of Impel Down. Amidst the hallowed halls of the world government's headquarters, the elders convened in their grand chamber, a somber atmosphere hanging heavy in the air. The 5 elders, the venerable figures of authority, gathered around a polished mahogany table, their expressions grave as they contemplated the seismic events unfolding in the world. "Have you heard the new rumors going around?" Elder Warcuri's voice broke the silence, his tone laced with concern. "The Pirate King, Gold Roger, has surrendered himself to the Marines." His tone became gloomy. "Surrendered, not captured." The others exchanged uneasy glances, the gravity of the situation sinking in. For decades, Roger had been a symbol of defiance, a legendary figure whose very name struck fear into the hearts of men. His sudden surrender sent shockwaves rippling through the highest echelons of power. "Forget about the rumor, I am more concerned about what could possibly compel him to surrender now." Elder Nusjuro pondered aloud, his brow furrowed in thought. "It seems too convenient, too orchestrated." Elder Ethan Baron nodded in agreement, his sharp gaze piercing through the haze of uncertainty. "There may be more to this than meets the eye. We cannot afford to underestimate Roger's cunning." Elder Jaegarsha, the eldest among them, remained silent, his weathered features betraying no emotion. His mind churned with possibilities, each more ominous than the last. The world stood on the precipice of change, and Roger's surrender was but the first domino to fall. As the elders deliberated, a consensus began to form, a decision that would reverberate across the seas and shape the course of history. It was decided that Roger's capture would not be merely a display of marine strength, it would be a declaration of world government dominance. "We must send a clear message to all who dare defy us," Elder Jew Peter intoned, his voice resonating with authority. "Roger will be executed, and it shall be done at his birthplace, Logue Town." The room fell silent, the weight of their decision hanging heavy in the air. The elders understood the magnitude of their choice and the implications it would have for the world at large. Roger's execution would mark the end of an era, a final reckoning for the age of piracy. But even as they prepared to execute their plan, doubts lingered in the recesses of their minds. What secrets had Roger concealed during his year of disappearance? What machinations had he set in motion, hidden from prying eyes? We must uncover every detail of Roger's life during his absence, Elder Warkuri declared, his voice resolute. We cannot afford to leave any stone unturned. The elders nodded in solemn agreement, their resolve unshakable. The fate of the world hung in the balance, and they would stop at nothing to ensure its stability. As the meeting adjourned and they parted ways, each elder carried with them the weight of their decision, knowing that the days ahead would test their mettle like never before. For the elders of the world government, the capture of Gold Roger was merely another victory. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in history, or so they thought. However, what they didn't know was that this event would be fraught with uncertainty and peril. And it would mark the beginning of their great empire's downfall. In the heart of the New World, aboard his mighty ship, the Moby Dick, the legendary pirate Edward Newgate, known far and wide as Whitebeard, sat upon his throne-like captain's chair, his weathered face edged with lines of wisdom and experience. His crewmates, a motley assortment of fearsome pirates, stood at attention around him, their eyes fixed on their revered captain, awaiting his word. Word of Roger's capture had reached Whitebeard's ears, carried by the currents of the sea and the whispers of the wind. The news struck a chord deep within him, stirring memories of battles won and lost, of comrades fallen, and of dreams shattered. Roger was more than just a fellow pirate. He was a rival, a friend, and a symbol of freedom in a world bound by chains. As the weight of the news settled upon his shoulders, Whitebeard remained silent, his gaze fixed upon the horizon, lost in thought. He knew that Roger's capture would send shockwaves through the pirate world, igniting flames of rebellion and sparking conflicts that would engulf the seas in chaos. Amidst the rugged landscape of a remote island in the New World, the stronghold of the Golden Lion fleet stood tall and imposing, a testament to the power and influence of its notorious leader, the legendary pirate Shiki. Within the confines of this stronghold, two of Shiki's trusted cotters lounged lazily, their laughter echoing through the air as they indulged in rum and tobacco. Did you hear about Roger? The pirate king got himself captured by the Marines. One of the cotters exclaimed, a smirk playing on his lips as he took a long drag from his cigar. What a pathetic excuse for a pirate! His companion chuckled, nodding in agreement. Yeah, it looks like Roger finally met his match. Who would have thought he'd end up in Impel Down, of all places? The cotters continued to jest and taunt, their words dripping with contempt for their fallen rival. They mocked Roger for his supposed weakness, jeering at his misfortune and reveling in his demise. He's nothing but a coward, one of them declared with a derisive laugh. Too scared to face the consequences of his actions. But their mirth was short-lived as a sudden gunshot rang out, shattering the jovial atmosphere and piercing through the silence like a thunderbolt. One of the cotters cried out in agony as he crumpled to the ground, clutching his wounded leg and writhing in pain. Before they could comprehend what had happened, the imposing figure of Shiki emerged from the shadows, his eyes ablaze with fury as he glared down at his fallen comrade. How dare you mock my rival? Shiki's voice thundered, resonating with a fierce intensity that silenced the cotters' laughter. Do you think the Marines have the guts to capture Roger? He is my equal, my worthy adversary. The cotters trembled in fear as Shiki's words reverberated through the stronghold, their earlier bravado replaced by a palpable sense of unease. They had never seen their leader so enraged, his loyalty to Roger burning brighter than ever before. With a steely gaze, Shiki turned away from the trembling cotters, his jaw clenched in determination. If Roger is to meet his end, it will be at my hands, he declared, his voice low and menacing. I will prove it to the world. And with that solemn vow, Shiki unleashed the power of his float fruit, soaring into the sky with a speed and ferocity that left the cotters in awe. As he disappeared into the horizon, a sense of awe and reverence filled the air, for in that moment, Shiki had shown his unwavering loyalty and respect for his rival, the pirate king Roger. The next morning, in the bustling streets of Logue Town, the news of Roger's capture spread like wildfire, igniting a flurry of whispers and murmurs among the common folk. As word of the pirate king's impending execution reached the ears of the townspeople, palpable tension hung in the air, casting a shadow over the once vibrant streets. For the residents of Logue Town, Roger's capture struck a chord of disbelief and apprehension. Many had grown up hearing tales of the infamous pirate king, his legendary exploits weaving a tapestry of adventure and intrigue that had captured the imaginations of all who heard them. To learn that such a formidable figure had been brought to heel by the Marines sent shockwaves through the community, leaving many grappling with the reality of his downfall. As rumors swirled and speculation ran rampant, the common people found themselves torn between conflicting emotions. Some viewed Roger's capture as a victory for justice, a sign that no pirate, no matter how powerful, was above the law. They saw his impending execution as a symbol of the world government's authority, a demonstration of their unwavering resolve to maintain order and uphold the rule of law. Others, however, saw Roger's downfall as a harbinger of darker times to come. They feared that his capture would only serve to embolden the Marines and bolster their grip on the seas, ushering in an era of oppression and tyranny. They mourned the loss of freedom and autonomy that Roger's demise represented, lamenting the inevitable shift in power dynamics that would follow in its wake. Amidst the turmoil and uncertainty, one thing was certain: Roger's capture had sent shockwaves through the entire world, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of all who bore witness to it. As the people of Logue Town grappled with the implications of his impending execution, they couldn't help but wonder what the future held in store for them and for the world at large. And as they gathered in hushed clusters, exchanging anxious glances and whispering prayers, they knew that the days ahead would be fraught with peril and uncertainty.
Thanks for listening.